And welcome into the Monday edition of Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ryan Porth here with you on this rainy Monday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. The roadway's a little wet out there, so make sure you're being careful on your drive into work, home from work, wherever you may be going on this Monday morning. It's a little slick out there. Joe Rexrode, how we doing? What's going on?
Yep, leave a little extra time. Doing okay. Interesting drive over. Interesting weekend. Packed weekend.
Yes.
Had a football injury mishap. Was not a fracture for 13-year-old Brennan, which is actually a rarity. So
that's been a rarity this year for
sure. So doing all right, man. How about you? I like your shirt.
Doing good. Got the We're Vibing Robbie shirt on today from Journey Risk True. You can check that out on the live stream on Periscope, on YouTube, on Twitch as well. The shirts are available, and I got to tell you, they look good. They feel good.
I mean, that's a majestic, when you see it in person.
Yeah.
Look at that. Porth, look at that. Look at that Robbie face on that shirt. Look at that.
Who wouldn't want to have my face on their body at all times?
And that beard, you look like a Scottish lord from the 1700s.
That's
from
the nicest thing anybody's ever said about me. I appreciate it.
Like the dude, it's the one guy, the dad who gets killed, right?
Yes. Spoiler alert.
No, it's his son.
Oh, it's his son?
Yeah, his son with the long, strangly hair.
Yeah.
And the beard.
Yeah. Spoiler alert.
Okay, I'm gonna have to. I'm gonna have.
The dad gets his hand cut off. The son
ruining
is
the entire
like William Wallace's best friend.
I got no sympathy if you haven't seen Braveheart
That's
yet.
True.
In
it did come out
in the year
like 1995.
2021. Yeah, check it out. You'll see.
You'll see Robbie.
You'll see Robbie.
We got a lot to get to today. The Nashville Predators, a massive, massive win on Saturday night against the Dallas Stars. I know the two of you were in the building as well, and just felt like the atmosphere was incredible on Saturday night at Bridgestone Arena. We'll get to that coming up here in just a few minutes. Taking your thoughts on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Corey Curtis joining us at 8 o'clock from News 2. 9 o'clock, Darren McFarland drops by as well. Got the Rex Rant coming your way at 7:45. So a lot to get to today here on the program. And we begin, Joe Rexrode, on the 2021 NFL Draft for the Tennessee Titans. Now, we talked about on Friday the selection of Caleb Farley and what happened there with the risks that some believe the Titans have taken with Caleb Farley. Some people think he's going to be just fine, and he's going to go out there and be a great pick for the Titans from day one. And now we sit here on Monday morning, and the Titans have addressed offensive tackle. They addressed the linebacker position in the third round, which I found to be very, very interesting when it comes to this draft. Monty Rice from Georgia being selected in the third round. Elijah Molden, another corner, selected with pick number 100. Rashad Weaver from Pittsburgh in the fourth round. Racey McGrath, who is immediately on the all-name team at wide receiver in the sixth round. And then another member of the all-name team, Brady Breeze, in the sixth round, pick 215, a safety out of Oregon. So all in all, you've got Farley in the first round, Radunz in the second round. I hope I'm saying that right. Out of North Dakota State. Is it Radunz?
I think it's Radunz.
Radunz. There we go. Dylan Radunz out of North Dakota State in the second round, the offensive tackle. Monty Rice, Elijah Molden, Rashad Weaver, Racey McGrath, and Brady Breeze. That is the 2021 draft class for the Tennessee Titans. What did you think of this draft for the Titans? And particularly, we'll kind of go pick by pick later in the show and give our grades. What were your thoughts on Monty Rice being selected with pick number 92, linebacker out of Georgia?
Yeah, I mean, that's the stunner for me. Not that they would address linebacker, that they didn't, address something else earlier. We talked about it a million times. You go by your board, and if your board says this player, even if it's not a more pressing need than another player, is better than that player, take the player you think is better. It's just by all analysis going in the draft, the Titans could have gotten Monty Rice later. Maybe they had information that wasn't true. I mean, teams work a lot on trying to figure out what other teams are doing and interviewing and what there's a lot of not just misinformation, but there's a lot of work to try to figure out what other teams are thinking. So maybe they had information that they needed to get him there, but to me, they could have gotten him later, and you're basically drafting in a very prominent spot a number 4 linebacker. I mean, that's what he is at this point. Now, is he the starter in 2022? There's a good chance of that. So you better hope he's good. But, you're only a year away from a significant role for him, so I get that. I was stunned. It's funny because so we do these things. The Athletic had us do these things, basically project ahead the next day. What picks could they be looking at to the next day? So we'll post that at night. Here you go, Titans fans. This is what they maybe. And I had Monty Rice as a day 3 guy.
Yeah.
It makes sense. We know John Robinson loves SEC players. I reject out of hand this he's from Georgia and Isaiah Will. Whatever. You keep going to Georgia, you'll probably find a good football player or two over the years. So I just couldn't believe it was that day. Actually, by the way, I had Rashad Weaver on that day 3 list too.
Look at you.
And a bunch of people who they didn't pick. But hey, that was the surprising pick of the draft for me, for sure. And it's a very interesting one too. My question for them after that was what's the confidence level in Rashaan Evans? And it was very high.
Mm-hmm.
And today they're working through, whether or not he's going to have his 5th-year option, which we all know he's not going to get his 5th-year option.
Yeah, they're working through the 5th-year option for Rashaan Evans is like John Robinson looking at the clock and saying, all right, it's passed. Cool. Everybody go home. Have a good day.
Yeah, there won't be a
There's
presser.
no working through.
There won't be a presser when he doesn't get his 5th-year option today. So it's an interesting situation at that position. Is Monty Rice a guy who could come in and push Rashaan Evans? I'd be kind of surprised by that. Rashaan Evans took a step back last year, but it's not like Rashaan Evans never makes plays or has no value. I thought Rashaan Evans in 2019 was trending in a pretty good direction. So
Me too.
You got David Long in there. You got Jaylen Brown. But, I think Brown and Evans are probably in their last years with the Titans in 21. So you do have to get someone in there. I just thought it would be a little later or maybe even potentially next year. If it turns out that Rice is raring and ready to go as a starter after having a year as an understudy, then it'll look better then.
Yeah. Let's go to our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Kelton texting in. Not a good draft for the Titans. If you look around the division, 2 teams got a whole lot better. Take a guess at who? I would guess Indianapolis and Jacksonville.
I'm guessing not the Texans.
Yeah,
Do
not
they
the
have any
Texans.
draft picks? They finally get a draft pick and they take Davis Mills.
Yes.
Good start, Texans. Things are really going well in Houston. But
Yes, they are.
look, we knew the Jaguars were going to get a lot better. They had a bunch of picks and they went 1-15. They drafted Trevor Lawrence. Also, they might have Tim Tebow coming in.
I
Wow,
saw that.
Imagine that.
Tim Tebow playing tight end.
Oh boy. But the Colts. The Colts. I like some of what they did too. I like Dayote Ingbo. The Colts have drafted well. Chris Ballard has been a good GM. I think Chris Ballard and John Robinson both have been good GMs. It's a nice little GM rivalry.
Yeah.
So we'll see whose class turns out better. I think overall, I liked the Titans class pretty well. I liked a couple of their picks a ton, but I was surprised. I was surprised in the linebacker. I was surprised that there's no tight end we're going to be talking about today in the draft class.
Yeah, that was kind of the biggest thing for me is the tight end position not addressed in the draft. So that kind of leaves me scratching my head and saying, all right, what does this mean if you're the Titans? Does this mean you have an incredible amount of faith in Anthony Ferguson? And maybe they do. Or could there be maybe a trade coming later this offseason or a free agent pickup coming later this offseason that you could address if you're the Tennessee Titans? I did find it, I guess peculiar is the right word, that they did not draft a tight end at all during this draft.
Now, one of their undrafted free agents was Briley Moore, Kansas State.
Yep.
That's a good pickup. He was expected to be drafted. So, that's a guy who I think has a shot. We've talked about Jared Pinkney. I asked John Robinson about Michael Pruitt, and he left the door open on that. I still think that that's possible. It seems like they're moving on from Pruitt, but that's a possibility. And I'm with you. Maybe there is a trade out there. My gosh, John Robinson used to work for Jason Light. They're buddies. Think Jason Light would send him O.J. Howard?
Maybe.
For whatever. I don't know what that would take, but he's still on a rookie deal, and he's talented and doesn't get a lot of play right now with the Bucks. Maybe Light would send Ryan Suckup too. There's another thing that
I'll tell you what.
There's another thing the Titans are lacking right now is a kicker. I mean, the kicker situation is right now. You're talking about they got the kid from Ohio State who was good, and they got Tucker McCann competing. That is the kicking situation right now. I don't know that that's
I don't know if you feel great about
that comforting.
What do you think about Dez Fitzpatrick out of Louisville, the wide receiver taken in this draft? You knew at some point they were going to draft wide receiver. You got Racey McCrath later in the draft as well. But a lot of what I hear about Dez Fitzpatrick, people like.
You know, I like Dez. The crazy thing is, as soon as they drafted him, I'm like, gosh, I totally forgot about that dude.
Yeah.
He's like the 33rd ranked receiver by Brugler. Yeah. But it's like, he's good. Yeah. I mean, for 4 years, he's a good player. The guy averaged 19-1 a catch last year. He averaged 16-8 a catch in his career. Tutu Atwell was the star, of that receiving core last year. Good size. I mean, 6'2", 208. He runs. I mean, they like him as a blocker. I don't mind the pick at all. Now, if you go by again, Brugler had him as a 6th, 7th round grad. They moved up to 109 to get him. Hey, it's not bad. It's not bad. Like, I look at that guy and I say, if that guy comes in and does everything that the Titans want him to do, why can't he be something in the realm of a Corey Davis?
Well, it's interesting now because I would assume he's going to slot in there as one of their top 3 guys. So you got A.J. Brown, Dez Fitzpatrick at 6'2", Josh Reynolds at 6'3". We talked about how last year at times their receiving room was like a bunch of Smurfs out there. They were small. A little bit more size at wide receiver, at least with your top 3 this year.
Yep. Little Cam Batson's going to be everyone's going to be towering over Cam. And he felt all comfortable last year with Humphreys and Khalif Raymond around. Yeah. Now he's going to be towered over. So, they ended up not doing the slot thing. They don't do the dedicated slot thing. Hey, right there in the 3rd round, where they take Monty Rice, Amari Rodgers from Clemson is there. He's that classic slot guy, maybe just a smidge below Elijah Moore and Rondale Moore and some of those guys, as far as what the upside is, but a darn good player. They don't go there. They go with big receivers. Racey McMath is interesting, too, to me. Clearly, the special teams aspect is a big thing with him.
Sure.
But great size and great speed. I mean, he is a burner. He was finally a starter this year at LSU. I mean, it's hard to knock a guy because he couldn't start over like Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson, So, I mean, it's an interesting situation. I probably at other schools he has a lot more production than this, but I don't hate that pick either in the 6th round. Going to help you on special teams. Back of the room guy, but maybe even a guy that you can sneak in there for some vertical stuff like you did with Khalif Raymond.
Yeah. So we are off and running today here on Robby and Rexrode. Right now discussing the NFL draft for the Tennessee Titans, and that introduces our poll question of the day at 1025 The Game on Twitter. What would be your initial grade for the Titans 2021 draft class? Would it be an A, a B, a C, or the final option is D or worse? Let us know. You can vote on that poll at 1025 The Game on Twitter. You can also respond on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. How much better do we think the Titans are after this draft? We'll get to that coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 1025 The Game.
John, this defense is going to look so much different from last year. Why was it so important to make changes in this unit?
No, I mean, I think that anytime you go into free agency and the draft and there's roster turnover every year, and we added players in free agency there after the season was over. We added some guys this weekend via the draft, and excited to get to work with all these guys, whatever we can get back and get rolling.
That was Titans general manager John Robinson discussing the changes made on the defensive side of the ball, both in free agency and in the draft as well. Certainly going to look a lot different on that side of the ball for the Tennessee Titans this year, and Joe, it's probably a good thing based on what we saw last year on that side of the ball. So we'll see what ends up happening, how that shakes out for the Titans on the defensive side of the ball. Right now, talking NFL draft, taking your thoughts on the Titans. What did you think of their draft? What grade would you give the Titans and how they handled the 2021 NFL draft? That is our poll question of the day at 1025 The Game on Twitter. The options are an A, a B, a C, or the final option would be D or worse. Right now, very early in the voting, 53% say they'd give the Titans a B, 32% say C, 10% say D or worse, and only 5% going A. So some tough graders so far, Titans fans.
Yeah, I figure BC will dominate here. I would give B my that would be my odds-on favorite to win. D or worse, 10%, huh?
My vote was
tough
C.
graders.
It's hard for me to give above C when you don't have a tight end. It's very difficult for me to do. Now, that doesn't mean they're not going to get a tight end. The picture is still, I guess, incomplete on that front. But
we're just grading the
grading the draft.
Yeah,
that's all I'm doing. So I gave a C for this draft. Also, I think it is a bit of a risk with Caleb Farley in the first round with a back. So I'm going C. I'm going right down the middle. That's what we want.
Yeah,
here.
This is the first time I've thought about it from a grade perspective. I'm conflicted between C plus and B minus. I'll go C plus.
Okay.
Be a little bit.
That's not an option in the poll question. That's okay.
No. Yeah, okay, that's true. I guess if I'm sticking to the poll rules.
You're struggling.
I go B.
Okay.
I'll be more sunshiny than you.
Ryan Porth, what did you think of the Titans draft? The 2021 draft by John Robinson and company. You get Caleb Farley in the first round. You pick up a wide receiver. Later on in the draft, pass rusher, no tight end. You did take an offensive tackle in the second round. What did you think of the draft as a whole for the Titans?
Wasn't a huge fan of it, to be completely honest. I would give them a C, but I would probably lean like a C, a flat C or a C minus. I'm sure Radens is going to be a good tackle, but that to me is where the Isaiah Wilson pick hurts the most.
Yep.
Is that you didn't pick a receiver or a pass rusher with that pick because you had to recover from the Isaiah Wilson disaster last year. So, I mean, the passer, I don't know what Rashad Weaver's going to be in the NFL. I mean, who was the Georgia kid a couple years ago that they drafted that just completely flamed out?
DeAndre Walker.
I mean, people thought that was a good value pick in the 4th or 5th round too, and he did nothing. Mm-hmm. So there's no guarantee that Rashad Weaver is going to be anything as a pass rusher. So I felt like they, again, did not put a lot of value on the pass rush position, did not put a ton of value on adding a lot of depth to the receiver room. So, I think McMath is going to be mostly a special teams player and not really a receiver if he makes the roster. So, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there are some good players. Monty Rice, I'm sure, is there for 2022 and beyond because of the question of Evans and Brown.
Yep.
But overall, I wasn't that impressed with the draft class.
I think it's fair. I don't think you're going to be alone on that standpoint as well. I mean, it was surprising to me that they waited as long as they did to address edge rusher. Now, to your point, I mean, if the board tells you to draft a certain way, that's the way you got to draft. And we talked about that heading into the draft. But I did find it strange that they waited that long to address that position when we talked about there's just so little depth there at the moment.
Yeah, and I agree, and there's no guarantee of anything. I just really like the Weaver pick. I've watched a lot of Weaver in college, ACL. So there's another guy with But he came back from that this year and was really good. 7.5 sacks, 14.5 tackles for loss, 9 games. Versatile. He's physical. He sets the edge. As a 3, to get him in the 5th round, I mean, he's got to prove it. He's got to do it. But I like his chances to be a pretty good 3, and that's what they needed. They needed a 3, and maybe they need more than that if Dupree isn't ready to go right away. But I think that they saved it. I mean, to me, that pick and Elijah Molden are the 2 picks that I like the most.
Elijah Molden's a good pick. I really like that Elijah Molden pick. And look, if Caleb Farley works out and Elijah Molden can come in and play some important snaps for you, I mean, you feel a lot better about cornerback. I mean, I was interested to see how quickly they took 2 corners. It was going to be shocking to me if they got through this draft and they didn't take 2 corners. To take 2 corners in the top 100, I really like the Elijah Molden pick.
Yeah, and it tells you that when you look at the free agent signings, that Kevin Johnson's a depth guy.
Yes.
So that's good.
Yes, that is good.
The quicker he's not starting, the better for this team. And it also tells you that Janoris Jenkins he's a quick fix pickup. I think he's going to start this year, but they now have their corner group, the intended corner group of the future, which is Fulton, Farley, and Molden. They all have to work out, and we don't know with any of them if they'll work out, but at least they now have it set. They've set a course. And Port, to your point, that's a good point on Isaiah Wilson. It's a do-over for that. Now, I think Monty Rice is a do-over for Rashaan Evans, and that's a disappointing thing. You moved up to get him in 2018, and now you're already moving. You're
preparing to draft, just move on from him.
You're making a significant pick on the next guy.
I think a lot of Titans fans are going to be judging not the entire draft class, but they are going to be zeroing in on that Monty Rice pick and also looking at Amari Rodgers in Green Bay, because you trade back and you don't get Amari Rodgers, who I've always thought it was a really, really good receiver at Clemson, can play in this league, and you pass up on Rodgers, you trade back and get Rice, and then you trade up and give up 2 picks to get Fitzpatrick. I think that's going to be a key swing in the draft to see how that plays out.
Let's go back to our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Joe from Maryland texting in, should anyone be surprised about this Titans draft? It's always mediocre and not fan-pleasing. I'd say a C for the grade. So Joe not very happy with the drafts, gives it a C, says mediocre for the Titans.
This is initial, so I'm trying to think back year after year. None of their drafts have been fan-pleasing in the moment.
I mean, the 2019 one was pretty good.
Well, the 2019 one now looks great. I mean, you just hit the one pick that wasn't good, DeAndre Walker.
Yeah.
I mean, their 4th-round pick, Amani Hooker, is a starter now. I mean, that was a great draft, but in the moment, I thought that kind of excited people, right, with Simmons.
I thought so.
A.J. Brown.
A.J. Brown.
Yeah. Obviously, that looks – I mean, frankly, like the reality of that pick is way beyond the excitement at the time.
Let's be honest.
It was a good pick.
Corey Davis excited people. When they drafted him 5th overall, they're like, oh, yeah.
Corey Davis.
Titans have found their stud here.
And Adoree Jackson is going to be best return man of the league.
Yeah.
There's been excitement. There was excitement after 2016. You get Derrick Henry and Kevin Dodd. Oh, yeah, off the edge. Get out of here, man. No, I think they've had it. I think that this excitement for this class is among the lowest of his 6, I would say.
Let's go back to the text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Ty text in, Pro Football Focus has the class as an A. Most experts say it's solid, but it definitely didn't excite me much. Well, we know Pro Football Focus.
Yeah, they didn't list Dez Fitzpatrick?
Yeah, I was just reading off the list to begin with of Titans draft picks, and I got through it, and I was like, they're missing somebody here. Oh, yeah, Dez Fitzpatrick. Not even on the list for Pro Football Focus. So there you go.
Someone on NFL.com Saturday morning grading the first 2 nights of the draft gave the Titans an A, but they also didn't give any other team outside of like 2 lesser than a B.
Oh, that's great.
So it's like, we love every pick that's ever been made in the draft.
It's going to be the greatest
this year.
Draft class in NFL history.
All the picks are good.
Yeah.
Yay. They're all NFL players. Good job, Pro Football Focus. Like,
just leaving Dez Fitzpatrick off the list.
That just shows you like how much to trust their instant game grades.
Yes.
They watch like half the plays.
Just totally forget someone's out there playing. I mean, it's interesting. I mean, I really like the Dez Fitzpatrick pick. we'll see. I mean, this is going to be a draft class, especially. I mean, even starting with your first-round pick. You would like for your first-round pick to come in and be as close to a sure thing as you can have. I don't think that's the case with Caleb Farley. Now, I think the potential is there for him to be great. I think he's got the potential to be an awesome player for the Titans moving forward. But how's that back going to hold up? I mean, there's questions with this draft beginning from the first pick.
Yeah.
And that's I think it's exciting in one degree that if it works out, it looks really good for John Robinson and the Titans. I think also if you're a Titans fan, that can make you very nervous that it's a risk like this for Caleb Farley.
Well, and look, the second-round pick didn't expect a tackle to go that fast. Once you do that, Ray Duns, I can look at this offensive line and say, man, if this breaks well for them and he's really good, now you got your young, good right tackle next to your rising, really good right guard. You got Saffold and Lewan over there. That's a really good line, but that's how it's got to work out. I mean, you take him there, he needs to beat out Kendall Lamb pretty quickly and be the starter.
Let's go to our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. CD text in. Titans draft grade, a C. I rebuke that in the name of Jesus.
Nice.
All right. We'll see what happens on that front.
And what is your grade?
Yeah, CD, you got to tell us your grade if you're going to rebuke a C. Is it an A? Is it a B? What is it? Let us know.
Or is he saying it's an F?
Maybe
F
so.
minus, and the C is way too high.
That's maybe so. We'll continue to take your thoughts on the Titans all show long. We've got a lot to get to on that front, including to begin the 7 o'clock hour, we're going to rank the individual picks on our own grading scale that Joe Rexrode has come up with as well. That coming up at 7 o'clock. When we come back, we're going to get into the Nashville Predators, a massive win for the Predators against the Dallas Stars on Saturday night. We'll react to that coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game.
Ekholm down the left wing. Ekholm goes behind the net, taking wraparound, and it's tipped in the net. Eric Holla is there, and the Predators win it overtime.
Well, what a game. I think, both teams were going to come in and play as hard as they could. I thought it was a hard-fought battle by both teams. Wasn't a lot of room on the ice, lots of physicality. I thought both goaltenders played really well. Playoff-style game, playoff-style atmosphere. Our fans were fantastic. And, just like the fact that we were able to find a way to win and stay with it against a really good team. And it was a good night for us.
A big win for the Nashville Predators on Saturday night against the Dallas Stars. They get it done 1-0 in overtime in a great environment at Bridgestone Arena. It felt like the playoffs in there. And the Predators, they stick with it, and they find a way to beat Anton Khudobin, Eric Holla with the game winner in overtime. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ryan Porth here with you on this Monday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. I do want to pass along, there has been a tornado warning issued for Rutherford and for Cannon counties until 7 a.m. So if you were in that area, know of people in that area, make sure you're taking cover. A tornado warning issued for Rutherford County and for Cannon County lasting until 7 a.m. So make sure that you're aware of that this morning. We've got some severe weather rolling through our area. Joe, you were at the game on Saturday night for the Predators against the Dallas Stars. And it's one of those things like you hear, if you're just looking at the box score and you say a 1-0 overtime game, you're like, ugh, man, that was probably just a slugfest and not much action going on. I thought from an intensity level standpoint, I mean, it was absolutely like a playoff game. I thought it was entertaining from start to finish. Both goaltenders were awesome. UC Saros was great. Anton Khudobin was great. I mean, the Predators, I think they had a stretch in the second period and kind of halfway through the third as well where they just pinned Dallas in their own zone. They had shot after shot, chance after chance. Khudobin was awesome in those situations. And you just stuck with it. You find a way to make a play in overtime. Eric Holla finishes a chance after a great wraparound attempt by Matthias Ekholm. And I just thought an awesome game at Bridgestone Arena on Saturday night, an awesome environment as well. And that's a massive point to pick up on the Dallas Stars. Now 3 points ahead of the Stars with one game in hand.
It was great. It was a great game.
For the Stars.
Yeah, I got you. It was a great game, and I'm with you. It was enthralling for a 0-0 game. It was also physical. As that game is going on, I'm like, it'd be good for the Preds to not play this team again because they are talk about just begging to go on the IR with Roman Josi got smeared like a bug on the glass, and that looked bad. We thought Tolvanen maybe took, but those guys come back, and I thought that I thought Saros had some big saves, but I also thought that the defense around him was way better. They made
way better.
And I know it's going from Florida to Dallas. It's a different matchup. It's a different challenge. Probably not as challenging, but they were great in front of him too. And the Preds were the much better team in the third period, and I had some real chances. And I thought, honestly, Matt Duchene was about as good as anyone in that game. Nothing to show for it, but if you watch the game,
well, he should have had something to show for it. But
that's true. Yeah, he could have had a few things to show for it, but that he was all over the place. Not just making sweet passes, but he was active, man.
Yeah.
He actually kind of hit people a couple times.
He did.
So that was impressive on his part.
No, I mean, there was a pretty obvious buy-in level from everyone. I mean, Forsberg comes back in the lineup. Alex Carrier comes back in the lineup as well. Brad Richardson back in there. Nick Cousins, the odd man out in the forward group the other night. So you get some new bodies back in there. I thought Forsberg looked good for the most part. I mean, there's still, I think, a little bit of rust that he's going to have to knock off, but he still made some plays that you're watching him and you're like, all right, well, he's the only guy they have that can do that. I mean, it was good to see him come back in there and look, I think, as good as he did in a high-pressure, playoff intensity style game like that. And to your point about the defense, Adam Vingan put this out from The Athletic after the game on Saturday night. On Monday against Florida in the 4-1 win, they gave up 21 shots in the slots. Florida had 27 in the slot. On Tuesday when they won 7-4, they gave up 4 against Dallas on Saturday.
27-4.
27-4. That's a massive improvement. Now, to your point, the Dallas Stars are not the Florida Panthers, and I don't think anybody would confuse them for the Florida Panthers, especially without Tyler Seguin. But that's a pretty massive improvement defensively.
Saro's got a shutout. It's his third of the year.
Yep.
14th of his career. Earned the shutout. Great job. But he was more impressive in the blowout loss to the Panthers.
I agree.
Yeah, he just was.
Yeah.
I mean, he saw way more high danger. I mean, he had to make way more difficult saves in that game. So it was, that's a heck of a stat. And I thought Carrier also made a difference with that team. Forsberg, but immediately you see with Carrier, that's a guy you want on the ice. That's a big return for them. And if they can get Fabro back, you feel all right about the whole group there.
Yeah, you could not have Gut Branson on the ice.
You're such a good Branson hater.
He was not good, man. This experiment needs to be over. I mean, he wasn't good last week. Heading into this game, I thought he was really bad Saturday night. Not just with the chance he missed. I mean, he had a wide open net from Matt Duchene, and that's the thing people are going to point to where he just totally whiffs on the puck. He's fumbling all over himself, tripping up in the offensive zone, gives up a chance on a breakaway that had no business being given up. I mean, it's just there's no reason for him to be in the lineup.
He threw some hands.
That's great.
Got in there and mixed it up a little bit.
Yeah,
you don't like
great.
that?
That's way to go. There's no reason for him to be in there. And when Fabro comes back, he's not going to be in there. So I'm interested to see how they handle that moving forward. There are a lot of bright spots for the Predators on Saturday night. He was not one of them. And if you look at the underlying numbers, it's not good. Not good for Eric Gudbranson. So we'll see what they do with that moving forward here. Ryan Porth, you were in the building on Saturday night for the game. What did you think of the game for the Predators, the response from the 7-4 loss to Florida on Tuesday, and the environment in the building as well?
Well, I was there with my dad and my wife, and I told both of them at the end of the third period, I said, this is one of the best 1-0 games that you could ask for.
Yep.
Like, it was intense as all get out. It felt like a playoff game in there, even though there weren't 17,000 people in there. It certainly felt like a playoff atmosphere. And I still couldn't get over yesterday morning just how good of a game that was, and the fact that you found a way to win that one. Jamie Benn's response after the Hollow goal tells you everything you need to know about the way the Stars are going right now. I mean, he slashed his stick over the crossbar. Stars have been overrated all year, and the Preds, as long as they take care of business against Columbus, they are likely going to be headed to the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, they're in good shape right now. You've got a 3-point lead on the Stars. You've got 2 coming up with Columbus. Columbus continues to just kind of pull the plug on the season now. That can also make a team very dangerous when you approach a matchup like that with nothing to lose. They're bringing up some of their young guys right now as well, just kind of giving a look at what they have at the future. And, that could be really good news for the Predators. It could also be a very dangerous formula as well. So you've got to guard against that if you're this Predators team. But if you can win both of these games against Columbus, Dallas this week, they start with the Florida Panthers and then take on Tampa Bay twice. And Tampa Bay lost again over the weekend to Detroit, which I still just I can't figure out how that continues to happen for this group. Now, they did respond yesterday and get a win against the Red Wings, but Saturday they lose 1-0 in a shootout against the Red Wings. So they're going to have a lot to play for later this week against Dallas. Right now, Tampa Bay in second in the division. Technically, they have played 1 fewer game than Florida. So it's going to go right down to the wire with Carolina, Tampa Bay, and Florida. Carolina right now has a game in hand on Tampa and 2 games in hand on Florida, and they're at the top. So they're sitting pretty at the moment. But if you're the Predators, you can take care of business these 2 games against Columbus. I think you feel good about your chances.
You do. Now, Dallas finishes with Chicago.
They do.
So while the Preds finish with Carolina, if you're the Preds, you want it to be alive as a race while Tampa Bay plays Dallas, and then you want it to be dead as a race when you play Carolina. I still look at this, and with the game in hand, if Dallas can get that win, that 1 point against Chicago a couple weeks ago is still is still out there as a potential problem for you. You know, that 1 point that you lost, you know, when you gave up 3 goals in 2 minutes, 51 seconds. Don't mean to be the Grim Reaper, but I have thought about that point here. And yeah, it's still it's not over.
No, it's not over. You've got to make sure you take care of business. And look, Dallas, I would assume this week they're getting Sagan back. I mean, he was, if you believe the reports out of Dallas, he was close on Saturday. And Rick Bowness, Stars coach, said he was, quote, very, very questionable for the game on Saturday. Now, obviously, he did not play. But if he was very, very questionable on Saturday, my guess would be that he's close, and you're probably going to see him at some point this week. How big of a difference can that make for the Stars offensively, who have now been shut out in 2 consecutive games? I mean, they're going to have to find a way to score some goals here. So it's going to be very fascinating this week to see how that team responds. If you're the Predators, you can't worry about that. You just got to take care of your own business. And we'll take your thoughts, continue to take your thoughts on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. On the Predators, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. And also get to a player who I think is very encouraging for the Predators moving forward as they come down the stretch. That's coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game.
This hour of Robby and Rexrode is brought to you by Trane. Get a great deal this spring on a new Trane heating and cooling system. At Trane, they test so it runs. Visit TraneInfo.com to find your local dealer and learn more. It's hard to stop a Trane.
Make sure you're tuning in later on in the show as we reveal a keyword for you to text into the game line for your chance to win the T-Mobile Hockey Home Gate giveaway. A Dos Equis prize pack, including a case of beer, dessert from Nothing But Cakes, a T-Mobile prize pack, and food provided by 312 Pizza Company in Germantown. We'll have that opportunity coming up for you a little bit later here in the show. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ryan Porth here with you on this Monday morning in Nashville, Tennessee, discussing the Nashville Predators, a massive win for the Predators on Saturday against the Stars. Taking your thoughts on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Joe Rexrode, I do want to pass along some breaking news very quickly. This coming from Adam Schefter. The Titans have informed Drew Rosenhaus that they will not be exercising Rashaan Evans' fifth-year option due to ongoing salary cap uncertainty, and instead hope to sign Rashaan to a contract extension before his current deal expires in 2022. This coming from Rosenhaus.
That's interesting. That's an interesting I wonder how often teams say stuff like that.
Yeah.
But usually it's just like they picked it up or they didn't pick it up. So Rosenhaus is telling Schefter that they said they'd like him to sign him to a deal. Now, I would add, depending on how he plays this year.
Yeah.
I mean, look, the thing
Pretty
is,
important.
yeah. I mean, the thing is, who knows? I mean, he could be real good this year. Last year's step back, he could take a big step forward this year. He's got the tools to be good, but that's interesting, and I'd love to know how he feels about that right at this moment.
I would as well, and we'll continue to get to that a little bit later in the show. Got a lot to get to today with the Tennessee Titans. Taking your thoughts on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. The Predators, a big win against the Stars, and Joe, you mentioned it last segment. A player who I thought was excellent on Saturday night, Matt Duchene, and he looked engaged. He looked like he was attacking. He was very confident with the puck. I mean, there was a play he made at the blue line where he's kind of got his back to the Dallas player, and he just spun around, put him on a top, and just spun around, got back to the middle of the ice, made a great pass toward the middle. Probably could have shot it there, but made a great play towards the middle of the ice there. And it was just kind of example after example on Saturday night of Matt Duchene playing really well. Now, to your point, he did not get rewarded on the score sheet, and we've talked about that a lot this year. That's got to change at some point. He should have been rewarded at least with an assist. He did make a perfect pass to Gudbranson with a wide open net, and he just whiffed on it, but that's a discussion for another time. But I think it's really, really encouraging coming down the stretch. If that's the level and the version of Matt Duchene that you're going to get coming down the stretch here, he's going to find the back of the net. Like he's going to be a productive player if he continues to play that way. I was really encouraged by how well he played on Saturday night.
Yeah, you noticed him every time. I mean, that was their best line all night, I think, really. And he was the driving force. So it was very encouraging. Look, I think he's played well since he's been back, but I thought he even had just a little bit extra, burst Saturday. So if that's what it's going to be, like you said, there's going to be a payoff.
Gover time on Twitter. Our friend Jeremy K. Gover says, it's pretty sad when 2 points in 7 games is heating up. I promise I don't mean to be cantankerous here, but saying an $8 million player is heating up when he's got 2 points since his return is ridiculous.
Yeah, well, it's again, it's just like this game. There were no goals. So did they play hockey?
They did.
Did anyone play well in the game with no points at all? No one had any points to show for it. I'd say that there were players who played well. I mean, I hear what Gover's saying. The big picture is absolutely the same. And it's the same with Johansson. I thought Johansson played well the other night. I think Johansson's he's playing the full, complete game.
It was a nice response from the 2 Florida games where I thought he was pretty bad.
But he's also the same thing. He's being paid to do more than that. And Duchene is being paid to produce and to hit the score sheet. So it's a small sample size here, but I think Duchene is the process is working out. Like he's doing the things that give you a chance to be on the score sheet. Got to bury some, but I thought as a creator of chances the other night in a game with very few of them, in a defensive tight checking playoff kind of game, I thought he was good. Thought he was really good.
Yeah, I thought he was too. And again, if you play that way moving forward, I think you're going to like your results more often than not on the ice. I thought he was really good. With Forsberg coming back in there, I was interested to see kind of where everybody would be shuffled and where they'd be slotted. Now, Arvidsson not being available, I think changes that too. So yeah, I think it was easy for John Hines just to say, all right, Forsberg, you're going back in where Arvidsson was, and you're just rolling with that top line of Johansson, Forsberg, and Tolvanen. As Arvidsson becomes available, and he is day-to-day right now with an upper body injury, so at least he did not get designated the week-to-week that we've seen some of these guys get designated at this point, so I'll be interested to see when he comes back. But I thought that line of, even Richardson coming in. I mean, Richardson, to me, honestly, when he was activated and he was in the game, I was surprised by that. Like, I didn't think that Richardson, with this lineup being healthy, was going to really have a role with this group because I like the way Cousins was playing on that line with Hall and Duchesne. Obviously, you're not touching that fourth line right now with the way that they've been playing, so I was kind of surprised to see him in there on Saturday. Thought he played okay. I'm interested to see what they do with that moving forward.
Yeah, I meant to say something earlier. You said so. Cousins was designated with an illness.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't think Richardson would have been in.
Yeah, I mean, maybe not. I don't know.
But he was fine. I mean, I think if Cousins is healthy, he'll be back. And then if Arvidsson is healthy, then I think Cousins is out again, right?
I think.
You can't mess with the herd line.
No.
Wasn't Cousins sick?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I just said that.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
As Darren McFarland says, is this mic working?
This thing on?
I mean, it tells you all you need to know about the herd line is they were out there with like 45 seconds left in regulation the other night. 0-0 game. It's a game that you pretty much got to have if you're the Predators. And John Hines is like, all right, there's 40 seconds left on the clock. Herd line, go out there. That would not happen in the past. I can promise you.
Yeah.
So that tells you pretty much everything you need to know about the trust level that John Hines has in that line specifically. You came out with an article yesterday morning on The Athletic kind of detailing how the Predators have changed their season around to this point with some interesting comments in there. Colton Sissons was in that piece. Ryan Johansson in that piece as well. And I think Saturday night kind of the culmination of what we've seen over the last couple of months where the Predators have turned this thing around and have put themselves in this position here. Now 3 points up on the Stars heading into the final full week of the regular season here. I thought an interesting piece, including some interesting comments by Ryan Johansson as well.
Yeah, I got to write about Robby Stanley in my piece. It's
always good.
Exciting. Got to give you and Kara Hammer some love. Hammer with the herd line. It's herd line all the way, by the way. So sorry, Hal Gill. Beast line is very bleh, whatever.
I agree.
Beast is overused. Herd line is brilliant. But yeah, Johansson and Colton Sissons shed some light. A lot of credit to John Hines for how he handled the whole situation. You're always trying to find like the Newt Rockney speech or the moment where it all turned around like in the movies. There wasn't one, but a lot of the same stuff we've talked about. Young guys come in, people get injured, they kind of set the standard. But it was interesting to hear from those guys. They knew how close this thing was to being totally torn apart. I mean, They expected it. We expected it. And they bounced back from the brink. So to me, there's still big questions about where things are going and big questions about how far away this team is to really contend. But at this point, I'd say people should enjoy this team. I mean, sports is entertainment, and this team is entertaining right now.
They are.
They're fun, and they are playing really well. And I think that even if you're a Preds fan who doesn't like a lot of things and where they've been going, I think you should enjoy this. And this is since the Dallas series, 2019. I was thinking about this, and I wrote it in the piece. I mean, it's really been a negative trend for 2 straight years.
Yep.
So the last 6 weeks is the first bounce back the other way, really in 2 years. Now, how far does that go? I don't know. But I'm interested to see these guys if they can get in and to see if they can push someone in that first round at least. And then, obviously, what's to come in the offseason. But it's been a heck of a ride and really quite a surprise.
It has been, and we'll see if the Predators can keep that ride going this week, starting against Columbus tonight. We'll have Predators Pick to Click coming up at 8:45 as well. When we come back, we'll get back into the NFL draft with the Tennessee Titans. We will rate the individual draft picks on our own grading scale coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode, live from the Wholesale Link Studios, powered by RumbleOn.com. You're on ESPN 102.5 The Game. And welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Hour number 2 on this Monday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. We've got a lot coming for you today here on the show. Corey Curtis from News 2 drops by at 8 o'clock. We'll get into the Titans draft with him. Darren McFarland at 9 o'clock on the latest with the Nashville Predators. Got the Rex rant coming your way later this hour at 7:45, so you're going to want to make sure you're tuned in for that. And Preds Pick to Click, brought to you by New Amsterdam Vodka, coming up at 8:45. The Nashville Predators taking on the Columbus Blue Jackets tonight on the road. Puck drop at 6 o'clock, pregame at 5 o'clock here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Right now, talking NFL Draft and the Tennessee Titans, taking your thoughts on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. So the draft is over and done with for the Tennessee Titans, and several different selections made at key positions of need. Now, some selections made maybe a little bit later in terms of positions than we thought heading into the draft. and some not made at all. No tight end selected by the Tennessee Titans in the draft. So, Joe, we're going to go through each pick individually here for the Titans and give them a 1 through 5 rating on what we think of the pick and what we think of the decision made by the Tennessee Titans. So let's start with the simple start in the first round of Caleb Farley, cornerback out of Virginia Tech, selected with the number 22 overall pick by the Tennessee Titans. 1 through 5, what would you rate that pick for the Titans when it comes to Caleb Farley?
Okay, well, I guess it's probably the same thing, but I was thinking of it in terms of words. Okay,
words.
Yeah, love, like, neutral, dislike, or hate.
Well, you can make 5 your love.
That's fine.
There you go.
But also, this was I'm trying to think of like a scoring system for this too. So this is how I would do it. I would say love's a 3, likes a 1, neutral's a 0, dislikes a -1, hates a -3.
There's a lot of math.
There's a lot of math going on here. And then what is your final score after you add all those up, okay? Does this make sense?
Why can we not just 1 through 5?
Why can't you
much
just do
easier
1
to
through
do math
5?
1 through 5.
You're making things very difficult here, Rex.
Because I like negative points to be involved too, so you can add and subtract, you see? So then you could go through all the draft classes and see how many are on the plus.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I think we should probably still go 1 through 5, but yeah, we can do whatever you want.
Or we could do, well, we could spend a segment figuring out the math.
Good. Or you could just do 1 through 5.
All right. Well, I'm gonna say the words
Okay,
at least.
that's fine.
I'll add it up this way, you know, and then we'll see what we come up with.
Okay.
Okay.
So Caleb Farley.
So Caleb Farley, I am very close between like and neutral, but I'll shade to like, you know, and that's a nod to like the medical information that the Titans got. I mean, I just can't believe they're acting on a whim here. So I think he could be a dynamite player. So I will. It's close, but I go like there.
So is that a 4?
Yes.
Okay.
That's a 4 in your scoring system. It's a 1 in mine.
Okay. I'm going neutral with Caleb Farley. I love the talent on the field. The back injuries scare me, and that's difficult for me to overcome in this conversation. Maybe he comes in immediately and he's great. That would be awesome if you're the Titans. How long can that back hold up? Is he going to make a full recovery where the back's not an issue as you move forward here? That's going to be interesting for me to see and for all of us to see. But with that kind of hanging in the backdrop, it's hard for me to say like. I will go neutral at number 22. I would like the first-round pick to be more of a sure thing in terms of injuries coming in, and it's difficult for me if it's not to be like in that category. So I'll go 3 in my scoring system with that.
Okay.
Going to the second pick selected by the Tennessee Titans, the offensive tackle out of North Dakota State, Dylan Radins, number 53 overall. Now, this goes back to last year, as Porth pointed out earlier in the show. You swung and you missed on Isaiah Wilson. He is gone less than a year after you selected him in the first round. So that presents an opening for Radins to come in here at number 53 overall. What do you think of this pick when you factor in the entire situation here for the Titans?
I'm neutral on it. I get it. You know, there's some question with him on, you know, the level of play. I think in some positions it's not as important as others. I do in the trenches. You know, I'm a little bit more iffy on guys who are at a you know, that level, the FCS level. And there's some questions about him in terms of his strength and balance, stuff like that. I mean, obviously he's a very well thought of prospect. He was going to go pretty high in the draft. It's a need. And really, if you're going to knock the opening, then you go back to the last draft and give it a F minus,
Yes.
you know. But, I mean, look, they're drafting for what they are right now. But I'm neutral on it. I mean, I think it could work out. I think there's a lot of pressure on him to start quickly, and it could end up being a really good pick because and honestly, who knows? I mean, obviously, most of these guys who go high, almost all of them are left tackles in college. You know, at some point, Taylor Lewan's contract is also going to be a point of discussion. So, I mean, if he's a long-term guy, he could be the long-term left tackle down the road. I mean, who knows? But at this point, I got to be neutral on it.
I don't like it. I think this, and you brought up part of my concerns. I mean, you're playing college football at North Dakota State. That's not as big a deal from some other positions. The line of scrimmage, I mean, it's a totally different world playing at North Dakota State and playing at, I don't know, Georgia or Tennessee or somewhere like that. So I'm concerned about that. How does that translate to the NFL? Obviously, Teron Davenport, a guy that I trust very much on his football knowledge and what he says, and he kind of went through his process here, breaking down Dylan Radunz, and says he's not an instant plug-and-play starter, so the Titans will have legitimate competition on their hands with Tyson Brilo and Kendall Lamb. Well, to me, if he's not an instant plug-and-play starter, what in the world do you draft him at number 53 for with all the other needs you've got with this group? I don't like this pick.
Yeah, I mean, he better be a starter. He better be a starter this year if you're going to take him there.
Yeah.
I mean, so they may disagree with TD.
They very well
we'll
might.
see.
We'll see.
Yeah.
At number 92 overall, the Titans select Monty Rice, linebacker out of Georgia. How would you rate this pick? Interesting selection in the third round for the Titans.
Well, it's either dislike or hate. I went dislike because, I mean, I don't hate the player.
Sure.
And I think it certainly could be important in 22. But here's the thing. So we just got the news. Adam Schefter quotes Drew Rosenhaus. The Titans aren't going to pick up Rashaan Evans' fifth-year option. Clutch your pearls, shock face. I mean, everybody knew that was coming. Rashaan Evans knew that was coming. But quoted them saying, but they want to sign him to a long-term deal, cap issue. Listen, if they really wanted to, they'd pick up his option.
Exactly.
And then they'd work on it. I mean, but regardless, let's say that happens. Let's say, Jayon Brown has a good year, someone else signs him. To me, if I were the Titans right now, I would be more motivated to try to keep him than Rashaan Evans.
Yes.
But let's say that it is Evans. You can't have a starting duo of Evans and Rice together. It's the same player. You can't have run-stopping linebackers at both spots there. If anything, I'd rather have two Jayon Browns and give up something in the you'll give up some TDs and short yard, goal line and stuff like that. But, you can't have a Rice and an Evans long-term on this team. So something doesn't add up there.
Yeah.
And, to me, it's probably that Monty Rice will be the guy and Rashaan Evans will be moving on. We'll see. But if that's your plan to have them both, that's just not a good plan. So I go dislike. I think they could have got him later. That's another thing that is a problem with this pick.
I hate this pick. And it has nothing to do with Monty Rice. I think he could be a fine player in the NFL. But to your point, I think he could have gotten Monty Rice later if you really wanted him. And we talk so much about position of need heading in, and wide receiver is on the board. You've got Amari Rodgers available to you before you trade that pick back with Green Bay. There are different routes you could have gone here if you're the Titans. Again, nothing against Monty Rice, but I hate this pick for the Titans at number 92 overall. Now, maybe this time next year, you're really glad that the Titans selected Monty Rice because Rashaan Evans isn't here and he can plug right in there. But as far as the needs were concerned with this team, don't like that whatsoever. What about Elijah Molden, cornerback out of Washington, selected at number 100 for the Titans in this draft? What do you think of Elijah Molden, cornerback out of Washington?
I'm going love here.
Ooh, going all the way.
Going all the way to love here. I'm a big fan of this pick. I just think at 100, I thought I had Elijah Molden also on the big board going in, the second round pick possibility. A thing with Molden is he ran a 4.6 at his pro day. He also was advised not to run because he had a hamstring. He ran. Maybe it hurt himself a little bit with that. But if you watch this guy play, heck of a football player. And he's 5'9", and that also knocked him down. And, of course, you'd like all your corners to be 6'1", and have all the dimensions that Caleb Farley has. But I think he's perfect in the slot. Now they have the guy that they know they're going to put in there. And also, just so impressive, too. I think he's like a potential future team leader. To get him at 100, I think, is a steal.
Yep, I love that pick, too. I think he's going to be great for the Titans. And, look, I think if you're a Titans fan, you may be nervous about Caleb Farley and his back, but if it works out, I mean, there are some really athletic, intriguing young pieces that they have at that position with Farley, Christian Fulton. We'll see if he can stay healthy this year as well. And Elijah Molden coming into the mix as well. I mean, you've gotten a lot younger at that position, which may mean early on you're taking some lumps, and those guys are kind of learning on the fly and baptism by fire at the NFL level. But I think long-term, this could be a pretty good trio for the Titans if things work out from an injury standpoint. So really happy with Elijah Molden on that standpoint. We'll come back and finish the rest of the draft for the Tennessee Titans on the other side of the break. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in. Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ryan Porth here with you on this Monday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. Streaming live on Periscope, on YouTube, and on Twitch as well. Right now, going pick by pick through the Titans and their NFL draft in 2021. We've gone through Caleb Farley. We've gone through Dylan Radins, the offensive tackle out of North Dakota State, Monty Rice from Georgia, and Elijah Molden, the cornerback out of Washington, selected by the Titans at number 100 overall. At 109, the Titans select Dez Fitzpatrick, wide receiver out of Louisville. And we talked about his size earlier, 6'2", about 209 as well, a big receiver. So not necessarily a slot guy that's been selected by the Titans in the draft. And you look at their big three wide receivers right now, which what I would assume would be Dez Fitzpatrick, A.J. Brown, and Josh Reynolds as well. There's nobody there that's like your obvious slot guy. You can line up A.J. Brown pretty much anywhere. What did you think of Dez Fitzpatrick, the selection at number 109 overall for the Titans?
I'm neutral on it. He's a good player. He's very productive. All the measurables are good. The John Robinson talked about, like the work ethic thing that the raves were coming from, the Louisville staff, and I understand that every GM says stuff like that about players. But, he kind of went out of his way to say that they got some really strong endorsements on him. It's amazing, actually, when you look at him as a player and you look at the production, you watch him, that he was as low rated as he was in the receiver core by analysts. But,
Yeah.
I mean, taking him in the 4th round is totally reasonable. I'm neutral. You know, they did give up 2 picks. They went from 10 to 8 to get him. One of those was pick 232, whatever. But still, to give up 2 picks, go from 10 to 8, give up a little bit of your quantity in this draft to get him, that's quite a move. I'm neutral on it.
Yeah, I like the pick. I mean, 19.4 per catch last year. I think the speed is something maybe you're a little concerned about. He's not a burner out there. But I think, as big as he is, you're lining up guys on the outside that can go up and win some jump balls. I mean, I think he can go up and win jump balls. I think A.J. Brown can go up and win jump balls. We'll see what Josh Reynolds brings to the table in that area as well. I like the pick. I don't love that they gave up draft capital to go get him. And I think if you're a Titans fan, you're probably sitting there like, okay, would you be better off doing what they did and kind of trading back with Green Bay and ending up with Dez Fitzpatrick? Or would you have been better off just hanging around at 85 and selecting Amari Rodgers? I mean, I think that's the question you've got to answer if you're a Titans fan here. What do you think about Rashad Weaver, pick number 135 overall, the outside linebacker / defensive end out of Pittsburgh?
This was this was close to love. I went I like it. I like it quite a bit. 5th round. And he's just a really good football player. He stops the run. I actually wrote a little bit today, and I just put in Vrabel's whole quote on him in my piece today because it was like, dude, Mike Vrabel actually gave a great quote on something kind of unprompted, which just happens every once in a while. But he had this long kind of story about Weaver at the Senior Bowl, and they put him at 3 technique. They're like, well, let's try it 3 tech. I mean, this is a guy who's a pass rusher, and Vrabel just liked how he responded to that. He's an interesting player because, again, he's a 4-3 end for Pitt, for Pat Narduzzi, 4-3 defense guy all the way.
Yep.
But he really does measure out as an outside linebacker. He's a guy, unlike Patrick Jones, his running mate with that Pittsburgh defense, he's a straight-up 4-3 end. Wouldn't really have fit here. But Weaver does fit here, and possibly he could even go inside some. We'll see. He's got versatility. He makes a ton of plays. Yes, I'm a little biased by his interview, too. I think he was the best interview of the bunch. He's going to be awesome for us in media, which I know no one cares about. But so what? Care about us.
Yes.
We're excited about the interviews.
Yes.
No, but that does tell you something a little bit about personality, too, and presence in the locker room and all that stuff. I just think it's a really good find in the 5th round, and I think he comes right in, and he's their 3. And now they have – I understand, look, Ojulari almost happened. I mean, I assume, or maybe not. Maybe they wouldn't have taken him. They almost had a chance to take him. There were other guys higher ranked out there. We'll see how the Joe Tryons and the Joseph Asais do. But to get a guy of this quality in the 5th round, I think they have a solid 3 now, and I think he's going to contribute.
I am very neutral on this one. To me, I mean, I've seen this song and dance before by the Titans where they wait this long to address pass rush in the draft, and by and large, it's not worked out very well for him. Look, I think Rashad Weaver was a really good player in college. Can that translate to the NFL? Can he be a guy where, like you said, I mean, he's not going to be asked to come in and play a ton of snaps immediately. You're going to have Bud Dupree in there. You're going to have Harold Landry in there. So I'm interested to see what he can do in this role. But I think my neutrality on this may have more to do with the Titans than it does Rashad Weaver and the history I've seen with this franchise. It's hard for me to get excited about a pass rusher with the Titans this late in the draft when I've seen this happen so many times.
All right, so I know about, obviously, DeAndre Walker. That was the one empty pick of 2019. You're thinking of who else on that?
DeAndre Walker's on that list. I mean, it's throughout the entire history, and Porce brought this up a few times. They've been searching for a legitimate, bona fide pass rusher to find in the draft basically since Javon Curse. I mean, they found some in free agency. I mean, Jason Babin came in and had a great year. Kyle Vanden Bosch was really good during his time here. Even Brian Arakpo came in, and he was really, really good. But it just kind of feels like they've not really addressed this in terms of the way they should in the priorities. Like, I understand they've gone the other way on this too, and Derek Morgan was okay. Kevin Dodd was a total disaster. But it just feels like year by year goes by, and this is not addressed to the liking, I think, of most fans. Like last year, going through the draft, and it became obvious that Clowney was a part of the plans. But you go through the draft last year, and you don't even address like pass rush until like Laurel Murchison in the 5th round. It just feels like this is the same song and dance with the Titans.
And if Bud Dupree isn't ready for week 1, is Rashad Weaver going to be lined up opposite Harold Landry?
I would think so.
Not acceptable.
Okay.
Completely unacceptable.
Okay. Well, I'll argue with you guys. First of all, Landry was a 2nd-round pick. They obviously like Landry, right?
Sure.
I mean, Landry hasn't gotten the big sack numbers, but he plays every freaking snap. He's a starter. Then they paid Bud Dupree $82.5 million. So there's your starters. Now, look, I think that you have to get a 3 in this draft. But if we talk about Monty Rice or Dylan Rayduns being, reaches to go that high, how high do you go to get your 3 at a position?
When you have 19 sacks the year before, you go as high as you freaking need to. I don't care if it's number 2 overall.
Yeah, but again, are all 3 of those guys going to be on the field together? Probably not.
Probably not.
So, it's also what are you
in a perfect world, you would like
depth.
to get somebody in there that's better than Harold Landry.
Yeah. But
would you not?
Well, sure. But who in this draft was?
I don't know.
I mean, look, the Ojulari thing clearly is a knee thing, right? I mean, Ojulari.
You would think so. I can't think of any other reason why he would have slid that far.
Right. So who else in this draft at the edge? Do you feel like, oh, he's coming right in? Oh, my God, what the heck was that? I'm so excited. I'm pushing the mute button in the middle of me talking.
Yeah.
Like, who in this draft are you saying, oh, this guy's coming right in and he's going to, push. He's going to be starting fine with Dupree's hurt and great. Landry, get out of there.
I don't know. I mean, how do you feel about Greg Rousseau? I don't know. He was all the rage 2 months ago.
Yeah. I mean, I think like Jalen Phillips, the other Miami guy who went real high.
Right, but he was off the board by the time he got there.
Yeah. I'm just saying, that's the guy I look at in this and I say, okay, he's got the ability where, wow, he could be something. Maybe Kwity Paye, maybe. It really wasn't a great edge class. I feel like there was the one guy who's a real risk in Phillips and then some good guys. And, I like that they got a guy of this caliber where they did. I hear what you're saying in their history. We'll see. But it still is. It's your 3, And if Bud Dupree doesn't work out, well, you just had another terrible free agent period and buried yourself with an $82 million contract.
In the 6th round, 205 overall, the Titans select Racey McMath out of LSU, the wide receiver, a 4.34 40. So got a lot of speed there. 6'2", 211 pounds. Look, you had Justin Jefferson in front of you, Jamar Chase, Terrace Marshall Jr., obviously a lot of talent at wide receiver, but the production really wasn't there all that much for Racey McMath, even though he's a first-ballot member of the all-name team as we come into the Titans training camp here. What do you think of that pick, and especially when you factor in the special teams part of this too and the role he could play there?
I'm neutral on this pick. I like the speed. Not much production, but I think that there's an explanation for that.
Sure. Where
he played. It's good to get kicking game help. I just think, again, in this spot, I'm looking at what are they drafting a tight end here? And I'm not surprised they end up with 2 receivers in the draft, just like you said earlier in the show. 2 corners, 2 receivers. Makes sense. But I'm neutral on it. We'll see. I mean, I'm not sure he's making the team.
Right.
He probably will. So if he's that good in the kicking game, if he's – Dane Brugler actually in his analysis said he could be a star gunner, which is not something you hear a lot.
Hey.
But you know what? Great gunners are good to have on a football team. The most important play in football is the punt.
That's right.
But I'm neutral on it.
Yeah, I'm neutral on it as well. He's a guy, I think you like the tools. 6'2", 211, you run a 4.3 40. That's a lot to work with there if you're Racing McMath. Now, can you find a way to get him to run routes at the NFL level where he can get open and you can use that wide receiver? It's one thing to come in and be good on special teams and be a gunner, and that's certainly important. But in a perfect world, you'd like him to come in and be able to give you something at wide receiver too. Even though you've gone through the draft here and you brought in Des Fitzpatrick, I still look at the back half of that receiving room and think, all right, there are a lot of questions when you get down to number 4. Like, who is the number 4 receiver right now for the Titans? Is it Westbrook-Akina? Is it Cam Batson? I don't know if in an ideal world that's who you want being your number 4. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe those guys come in and they play really well, and they've justified this for the Titans. But if you could get anything out of McMath at the wide receiver element of this, I think that would be great.
Yeah. I mean, Titans like Batson and Westbrook-Akina. You'd rather have more proven depth there. I would say, McMath would slot in behind those guys. So are you going to have that big of a room? But if he comes in and beats out one of those guys, then that's a good sign. I mean, it's a good sign for this pick.
The final pick by the Titans at 215 overall, Brady Breeze, defensive back out of Oregon. Joe, what do you think about that pick, besides being an awesome name?
I dislike it. I love the name. I dislike the pick. Look, I know they need more safety depth for sure, but this guy, I mean, he doesn't. No one thinks he's going to be playing defense in the NFL. He's a special teams demon. He played every single unit for Oregon. So I mean, I think he'll have a chance to make the team because of the kicking game. I'm looking at a tight end here. I'm looking at maybe a kicker here, something else.
Yeah.
I got to go dislike on this one.
I'm with you. I dislike it as well. I think this could have been used. I mean, when you get down to 215 overall, look, everybody's going to point to Tom Brady at 199 and all these things, and I get that. But 215, a lot of it's a crapshoot anyway. You're just trying to get somebody that you hope can come in and contribute. I would have liked to have seen them gone either a tight end or a kicker or something that you feel like, heck, even a backup quarterback coming in and seeing what they could look like at this position. So I would dislike it. TD, our buddy from ESPN.com, he ended his segment on Brady Breeze by saying, quote, "This pick is somewhat confusing given how players such as slot wide receiver Kay Johnson and outside linebacker Quincy Roche were still on the board." So TD says somewhat confusing, the pick of Brady Breeze.
Yeah. Yeah, it's right now their safety group is worse because even if Amani Hooker is as good as Kenny Vaccaro, they don't have Amani Hooker now at the 3. You got Crookshank. So you need depth. You go this late to get that depth, you're not bringing in a guy who's probably going to help your defense.
When we come back, we will react a little bit to our picks that the Titans have made and our grades for them. Got some of your thoughts to get to on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Also get back into the Nashville Predators as well. The table is now set. What do the Predators need to do in these next 4 games to make the playoffs? We'll get to that coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode. You're on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ryan Porth here with you on this Monday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. We've got the Rex Rant coming your way at 7:45, so looking forward to that coming up in the next segment. Right now, taking your thoughts on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Coy in Clarksville texting in, I remember when Michael Roos was selected in the second round and wasn't a fan favorite either. Look how that turned out for the Titans. So going back to the Titans' second-round selection of Dylan Radunz, the offensive tackle out of North Dakota State, I said I disliked the pick. Coy saying that's how people felt about Michael Roos as well. Worked out pretty well for the Titans.
Yeah.
That could be the way this works out. I don't know.
I remember liking the Isaiah Wilson pick. So, Hey, you never know.
No, you don't.
So I kept score of the 1 through 5 scale.
So did I. Let's see if our math is the same.
Or McMath is the same.
Nice.
Joe graded out at a 3.2 average over the course of the 8 picks, and Robbie graded out as a 2.8 average.
There you go.
Oh, you average them. Okay, yeah.
Yes.
So by Robbie's scale, I gave this class a 26 out of 40. He gave it a 23 out of 40. By my scale, I said this draft ends up with a +3, and Robbie with a -1. So there you go. However you want to look at it.
Sure.
Does that make me qualify as a doom and glimmer here on the show?
Well, it's a C. I mean, and basically a +3. That means I'm C+.
Yeah.
So I mean, although that's not an option, I think if I have to pick one of our poll letter grades, I'll go C. C's right. I mean, it's a C with upside to me. Sounds like me as a student.
A C with upside, Joe Rexrode. Let's go back to our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Got a texter that says Joseph Asai should have been picked, not Weaver. What do you think about that?
Well, you would have had to go. You would have had to pick him much higher. Where exactly did Osai go pick-wise?
That is a good question. I will try to find out.
He went relatively early in the second round. I know that. And that's a guy that I looked at. I like him a lot. I really do. Yeah. Oh, no, I'm sorry. No, he was actually picked in the third round, and he was picked 69 overall. Nice.
Yes.
All right, Joseph Asai. But, yeah, I mean, look, I like him. I like Asai. I think, the funny thing is, look, here's the thing with, like, DeAndre Walker, Rashad Weaver, and stuff like that. I don't remember ever watching DeAndre Walker make a play in college. I'm not saying he didn't. He must have, right? And he must have.
Sure.
He played for, like, a loaded defense. I don't remember ever like, Rashad Weaver, I just have happened to watch a lot of Pittsburgh. Like, dude, the guy is a player. And I understand he went in the 5th round, so how could you be that excited? I think he's going to be a really good value pick. Joseph Asai is a guy who I think can be a good player in this league. He's not coming in right now, I don't think, and making a big difference. He's the definition of, like, the raw upside guy. But I was on board with the Titans going there. They would have had to either maybe, I guess, reach at 53 or move up, in the third round when he went and receivers went and Tommy Tremble went and Hunter Long went and a whole bunch of guys just before they picked.
Let's go back to the text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Got a texter that says, I give J-Rob a grade of D for this draft. With the options available when the Titans were on the clock, I do not understand what the Titans were thinking. So a D for John Robinson from that texter.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen some very upset fans about this draft. I think more negativity about this draft, an instant reaction, than probably any other draft under John Robinson, I would think. I think so. I think so.
Now, that doesn't mean it's going to work out that way.
Oh, no, not at
It'd
all.
be hard to be worse than last year so far at this point.
No, the reaction to last year's draft was much more positive than this one. So, again, we don't know. But I'm just saying, like, I think this is the most fan anger. I think it probably has something to do also with how last year went.
Agreed.
And how the defense played for that 11-5 team. But still, bad defense.
Let's go back to the text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Got a texter that says, you have to think the Titans are going to make some kind of move on offense in free agency or trade. I would think Golden Tate or trading for Hayden Hurst out of Atlanta.
Yeah, I don't think the Golden Tate thing's happening. I don't think the Julio Jones thing is happening. Kaharski asked J-Rob about Julio.
Yeah.
And I get the policy is like, because he would immediately I don't talk about this stuff. I think that would have been a good one for Robinson to be like, no. But normally I would never say that. You know what I mean? Because like when he said no comment, some people I'm sure were like, oh, they're talking to the Falcons about Julio. No, man. They're not getting Julio Jones. People are like, oh, they could restructure a couple deals. You know how much restructuring you'd have to do to afford Julio Jones? It's not happening.
The cap hit for Tannehill in like 2023 would be $70
$8
million.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no, down the road. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. $1 billion.
Let's go back to the text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Got a texter that says Trey Smith should have been taken over Brady Breeze. Saffold isn't getting any younger, and Trey Smith that late is a steal. I tell you what.
I love that idea.
Trey Smith going to Kansas City. I think as long as the blood clots don't become a thing again, you're going to look back 5 years from now and be like, how in the world did the Kansas City Chiefs get Trey Smith that late?
I bet you he's a 10-year starter there.
Yeah.
And I agree. The Titans, why not bolster your depth inside? Right now, Aaron Brewer is your swing guy in there. I'm totally on board with that text.
Let's go back to the text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Rob texted in, with Jim Schwartz coming in, is it possible we're moving to a 4-3 and we'll actually play both Rice and Evans at the same time?
No.
I don't think so.
No. Mike Vrabel is a defensive guy. He's a football guy. He has a defense. He is not bringing in Schwartz and saying, hey, let's try your defense. They're not changing defenses.
Let's go back to the text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Ben texting in, draft Anthony Ferguson in fantasy because they must know something that we don't. May not be a bad strategy this year.
Honestly.
Maybe Ferguson's just going to play every snap for the Titans at tight end.
He's going to get some targets this year.
Yeah, he is.
I mean, he's already been a productive guy. Good guy in the red zone. But, yeah, something else has to happen there. The Hayden Hurst thing, I mean, something like that. Again, I like the O.J. Howard idea because he's on a rookie deal right now. When everybody's talking about these trades for these veterans, okay, how much are they costing? You have a very small amount of money left after the rookie pool is paid off. If you get someone on a rookie deal, I like that a lot. O.J. Howard, I feel like, I mean, obviously, I thought he was going to be a total stud in the NFL.
I thought he was too.
So he's been a disappointment, but that team just has a lot of guys.
Yeah, they do. I mean, when you've got Gronkowski and Cameron Brate on the same team, I mean, it's just hard to get snaps at that point. And, he's had some injuries that he's dealt with too. So when you factor that in, it's not a good combo. But, hey, you love the talent. Maybe you could get him in here.
Do you think
Maybe they love Jared Pinkney.
Do you think Robinson mentioned Pinkney. Do you think that Jason Light would trade O.J. Howard and Ryan Suckup for Rashaan Evans? Make the call, J-Rob.
Check it out, buddy. If you could get Suckup back in here, be pretty good. He's pretty good last year. Super Bowl champion Ryan Suckup.
I don't think we're freaking out enough about the kicker situation.
Does it not read to you like they're, I guess, just waiting and seeing what Gostkowski wants to do?
Yeah.
Isn't that kind of a dangerous game to play, though, if he decides not to come back and play?
Well, but, I mean, Robinson was asked directly. I don't remember who asked it, but he was asked directly about Gostkowski, and he, didn't even, really acknowledge Gostkowski. It was, I don't know. The answer made me think, they're moved on. I could be wrong. But, yeah, if they're just in a total limbo situation hoping he comes back, I just feel like they are moving on from him.
Yeah.
That's how it reads. That's how it feels.
So what are they going to do? You just love Tucker McCann?
Maybe they do.
Maybe so.
I mean, this happens all the time in this league. You bring in an undrafted guy, and then a year or two sits around, and you're like, okay, he's good enough. I mean, maybe that's it. I wouldn't feel great about that right now, based on what I've seen. He was okay in camp.
We're going to be charting kicks every day in camp again coming up. That's going to be fun.
Yeah, and then we'll have disagreements. Like Jim Wyatt's over here on one goalpost. He's like, oh no, that went through. I'm like, no, it didn't. What are you talking about? This will be great.
It'll be a lot of fun coming up watching the Kickers in training camp in August. Speaking of fun, when we come back, it's time for the Rex Rant here on Robby and Rexrode. Another edition, Joe Rexrode, fired up as always. That's coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game.
The time is now for the Rex Rant
Sounds like somebody's got a case of the Mondays.
on Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 1025 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Just a small town girl living in a lonely world. She took the
Oh, yes. It is time for the Rex Rant here on Robby and Rexrode, and we have set the mood. This is a cover song of Don't Stop Believin' by Journey, as mixed on Facebook. Some dude on Facebook made the song as if Blink-182 were singing this song, and I know they got you fired up. I love it. I thought it was good.
You know what's hilarious is some dude on Facebook sounds as good as Blink-182 ever did.
He sounds
Some
pretty close.
dude with a Casio.
He sounded pretty
Can
close.
just sound just like Blink-182. So that should tell you a little bit about Blink-182.
I thought he did a good job.
Now
I actually like the song.
I like the song normally. Now they ruined it for me. I mean, I know "Don't Stop Believing's been a little bit overplayed at sporting events,
a little bit.
but I actually always liked it. I don't know about now.
That Blink-182 version sounded pretty good, leading us into the Rex Rant here on the program. The Rex Rant happens every week on Mondays here at 7:45 on Robby and Rexrode. Joe Rexrode has his rant. I turn it over to you, Rexy.
All right. So, look, as we've all seen, as we see every year, there are all kinds of opinions on the NFL draft. Okay? Sure. It's built for this. Every team, every player across the league, there's grades, there's what we just did, scoring this guy and that guy, and Dane Brugler today is going to have his grades of all the teams, and then we're going to have the mock for next year and all this stuff. I mean, you can go back to any year if you're being honest and find how just dead wrong you were and how dead wrong GMs were, okay? Yeah. I loved the Kevin Dodd pick. I was a little shaky on Derrick Henry. I don't know. Derrick Henry, you just signed DeMarco Murray. Isaiah Wilson, great interview. I can see this working out. Look, we may look back someday at Pro Football Hall of Famer Monty Rice and 7-time Pro Bowl safety Brady Breeze and then wonder, like, whatever happened to that Trevor Lawrence dude, that Kyle Pitts guy, whatever, we don't know, man. But here's the only thing that's not okay at this time of year is having the opinion that opinion shouldn't be had about the draft. It drives me insane. And it happens every year. There's someone, and this happened on Twitter to me. I'm sure that anybody who's out there talking about this stuff, you don't know better than the GM. No crap. We know that we're not GMs. We don't have the same information.
And I would like to introduce you to Mike Mayock as well. Anyway.
Yeah, well, that's a good point. We understand that it's just like talking about a football game. Well, you don't know what the coaches saw. Okay. Did they win or lose? As if they lost, we're going to talk about plays we didn't like, okay? Yeah. I'm sorry, but that's just how it is. This is like, for me, when my kids are sitting there bickering at each other, and I say, if you don't have anything nice to say, then just don't say anything at all.
Yeah.
It never works. But for people whose commentary on the draft is, like you know any better, if you don't have anything to say except that draft opinions are dumb, just don't say anything. We all know it's dumb. We know the teams know more than us. We're also participating in something that makes the NFL king, okay? I mean, this is a huge part of the NFL. They just dominate.
People talk about it all the time.
Think about any other sport right now. The draft. I mean, the NBA draft has a night, couple hours. I mean, this is a dominating thing, and it's okay to have opinions on it. And look, there's some terrible ones, like Mike Farrell of Rivals. You see his thing?
Yeah. About Trey Smith?
Yeah, he's like, you people who said I was wrong to have him as a 4-star. What do you think now? It's like, dude, he has blood clots,
you idiot.
I mean, I will give Farrell credit for apologizing, but that was an example of an incredibly stupid opinion. It's still better than the opinion that you shouldn't have an opinion, okay? And by the way, there's some people who go into a draft, and I mean, sometimes it's, because you're on the payroll or whatever, but there's some people who go into a draft and are just going to say, well, John Robinson, how could you criticize? Titans fans ripping this pick like they have any clue. Okay, well, John Robinson, who's been very successful, drafted Kevin Dodd, drafted Isaiah Wilson, moved up for Rashaan Evans, took Corey Davis, number 5, and Adoree Jackson, number 18. Okay? He's made mistakes. They all make mistakes.
Sure.
He also drafted Jaylen Brown in the 5th round and Kevin Byard in the 3rd, and Nate Davis in the 3rd, Jonnu Smith in the 3rd, took Derrick Henry. That turned out okay.
Not bad.
So, look, we don't know. And he doesn't know either. And none of these GMs know how things are going to work out. But does that mean we can't talk about it right now? So Jim Nagy, friend of the show, I like him a lot. His analysis is fantastic. He came on the show. He has great comments on all the players. He's a Senior Bowl guy, so especially the guys that are there, he knows really well.
Sure.
So then he comes out yesterday and he's like, this is a tweet from Nagy. Quote, nothing more consumable and irrelevant than winners, losers list, draft grades, and next year's mocks. So all the information a guy like this puts into the world, great information. So there's more discussion of the players. So the product's value is enhanced. Now we can't use that information to evaluate the jobs of the people who made the picks?
It's unbelievable.
So that information is really valuable and great before, but now it's irrelevant.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Now we just wait.
We can't talk about the picks. We can't question the GMs. We can't. I mean, every little detail about a toughness and competitiveness and length, scheme versatility, it all matters a lot until the people who are making a ton of money to do this stuff put it into action. I mean, it's ridiculous. We're all guessing out here anyway, and frankly, look, I get annoyed by Titans fans who think every pick sucks and, this is a disaster and all that stuff. I mean, I look at, Jared's out here like, Caleb Farley doesn't work out. You're fired, John Robinson.
Yes.
But you know what? I respect that way more than the opinion that you can't have an opinion.
I agree. And that's what makes the draft so much fun. And I think the NFL, number one, the NFL's popularity, it's so much higher than the other sports, and this is just a dominating news cycle in our country all the time. But also, I think, with the NBA draft, for the most part, who's going to translate pretty well to the NBA game. It's number one, it's 2 rounds, so it's not like you've got a ton to work with there. The NHL draft is great, but you're talking about guys for the most part that are 3, 4, maybe in some cases 5 years away from coming in and being part of the team. This is an immediate transfer from college football to professional football with people that you're hoping are coming in and making a difference right away, and the miss rate's pretty high. So it's pretty awesome to discuss. All right, even a guy like Trevor Lawrence, we all think he's going to be great and he's going to be awesome at this level, but what happens if he's not? What if he comes in there and he's just your average guy and then they never get anywhere with Trevor Lawrence as their quarterback? I think that's what makes the draft so fun. So could you, I guess if you're a cynic, just look at it and be like, well, you don't know. Ryan Leaf was supposed to come in there and be the greatest thing since sliced bread, and he sucked, and he was a bust. Jamarcus Russell was selected number 1 overall, and he sucked. He was out of the league in 5 years. That's all true, but that's part of what makes this fun. And if you took the approach of, well, let's just wait and see, well, then what are we doing?
Yeah. We could just I guess we can not predict the season or not talk about it. If a team loses a game, gets blown out, well, just wait and see what they do at the end of the year.
Just shut us down. Yeah. We'll be back there for every game, after every game.
All these opinions, there are going to be very wrong opinions, okay? But they are not irrelevant. They're not irrelevant. No. And that's my problem.
No, I think that's a good Rex rant right there.
Thank
because this happens a lot, too. Even with the Predators and the deadline. They're well, David Poile decided to keep everyone. How could you question David Poile? I think David Poile's a great general manager. Obviously, he's the winningest GM in NHL history. That does not mean that every move David Poile makes is the right move. We've talked about a lot the last few years. Kyle Turris, that did not work out so well for the Nashville Predators. So this, and I got into this with somebody at the deadline, this idea that you just can't question anything from general managers or coaches. Do they know better than I do? I would hope so if you're in that job.
They darn well better.
Yeah. If not, you're in, and like I said, I'm not sure that some do. Mike Mayock in Las Vegas may not know better than most people when it comes to what to do in the NFL draft. But that's part of what makes sports fun, too, is you can second guess. They are paid a lot of money to make these decisions. They can handle being second guessed a time or two.
Yeah, they're paid a lot. They're public jobs. And it's okay for all of us to give our opinion at the time. And it's important to be willing to say you were wrong, because we'll all be wrong in this. But every GM in this draft will be wrong on at least a couple of their picks. And they might be surprised at how well a couple of them work out. It's an art. It's not a science. And it's an incredible discussion point. all the people who want to say, oh, you just trust the GM, just exit the discussion. Let the rest of us blather on about what we think about every pick, and you shut up and go talk about something else.
That is today's edition of the Rex Rant. You can check it out every Monday morning at 7:45 here on Robby and Rexrode. Hey, don't miss the Cure for Our Friends Cystic Fibrosis Golf Tournament, May the 15th at 12 Stones Golf Course in Goodlettsville. Some of the teams include retired Titans football players who will be hanging around after the tournament for the after party. Cure for Our Friends Golf Tournament still has room for a few more teams and a need for silent auction items and sponsors. More information can be found at cureforourfriends.org. Thank you to Dad's Towing, Mitchell Motors, and Nashville Wrecker Services for being the tournament sponsor for the 2021 Cure for Our Friends Cystic Fibrosis Golf Tournament. When we come back, we'll be joined by Corey Curtis from News 2. We'll get into the Titans draft with him. Also a big win for the Nashville Predators on Saturday night as well. All that coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode live from the Wholesale Link Studios, powered by RumbleOn.com here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in, hour number 3 of Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ryan Porth here with you on this Monday morning in Nashville, Tennessee, discussing the NFL draft. And to help us talk about that, we go to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in our good friend Corey Curtis from News 2. Corey, what's going on, brother? How we doing?
Oh, just digesting the weekend.
Absolutely. Digesting the weekend. An eventful weekend it was around here, both in the NFL draft and in the Nashville Predators as well. We'll get to the Predators coming up here in just a few minutes. Corey, I guess we'll start with Caleb Farley being selected in the first round, number 22 for the Titans overall. What did you think of that pick, getting Caleb Farley at number 22 overall?
Well, first off, I get it. You're getting top 10 talent at the back end of the first round. So I totally understand, just like with Jeffrey Simmons, you don't get that opportunity very often to get a player of that caliber in that position. We just thought going into the draft, and I'm sure you guys have talked about this, that after Isaiah Wilson, that their risk factor had to be really, really low in round 1. And, apparently they feel like the risk factor with him is very low because, I like to say NFL teams generally don't just roll the dice on a guy and go, well, we hope he's going to be okay. They have to believe 100% that he's fine. I mean, because look, the athletic ability, the tape, everything's there. The only two questions are, can he stay healthy? Number one, and is he the same guy post second back surgery that he was before it? I thought Teron brought up a really good point about, is the twitch still there? Because, the difference between a 100% guy and a 97 or a 95% guy is a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, it feels like there's a good chance, he's going to be okay, but then does it become this constant thing that comes back, and does it end up limiting him, long term? Of course, with the Titans, they have not gotten to second deals with many guys anyway, Corey,
yep.
And got the news this morning from Adam Schefter about Rashaan Evans, which was interesting. I don't know if you saw, but Drew Rosenhaus basically saying the Titans want to sign him to a long-term deal. The cap thing doesn't work out. To me, it's like, okay, well, if you really like him that much, you just pick up his option. But what do you think about that situation, and how do you think the Monty Rice pick relates to that?
Well, I don't agree with you in the fact that if you want to sign him, you pick up the option. He doesn't play to a $10 million level, so I'm not picking up that option. And I agree with the strategy of walking in and telling him, hey, we're not picking you up, but we want to keep you. I thought when this happened with Corey Davis, they should have walked in and said, hey, we can't pick up that option number, but we want to sign you. Here's 4 years, $40 million. And would that have worked for Corey Davis? I don't know. But, when you see what he got now and where the team is now, they'd be in a pretty good spot with that deal and being aggressive in signing these guys. I mean, the fact is, until this weekend, John Robinson had made 6 first-round picks, and there are only 2 left on the roster in 5 years. That's not great. That's not great. Look, he has unquestionably made this team better. I'm not arguing that. But we can all look at first-round picks who are supposed to be pillars of your team, and they haven't been. I mean, we all like Rashaan. We all think Rashaan makes good plays, but has he lived up to a first-round pick? No, probably not. He's probably played like a third-round pick. And, that's just the facts. And so can he be a part of this team in the future? Yes, but it's going to have to be at the Titans' price. I thought drafting a linebacker was kind of in the cards for this team because it's not just Rashaan, but also you've got Jayon Brown also in the last year of his deal. So now instead of replacing, 2 in next year's draft, you're potentially just replacing 1. See what kind of player Monty Rice is, if he's more Evans than he is Brown. But, that appeared to be in the cards because they know, look, they certainly, if they re-sign one of them, we'll see, but they're certainly not going to re-sign both of them. They can't afford it.
Well, okay, let me come back on I hear you on $10 million, but I mean, Avery Williamson left for $8 million a year 3 years ago. You know, what is the what's the long-term number if they figure something out? I mean, I would assume that he would be able to find something, you know, in that range, wouldn't he?
Do you think somebody's going to give him $10 million a year?
Well, I don't know about 10 a year, but not too far from it.
Okay. Well, you know what? If somebody wants to give him $10 million a year, then give him $10 million a year. I'm going to draft a guy in the second, third, or fourth round. I'm going to plug him in and play him for about 1/5 of that price.
Right.
Okay?
Well, that's the thing. I don't buy that they're planning to have him here.
Oh well, you know, they may be planning to have him, but they might be planning to have him at $5 million a year. You know, and that's what I'm saying. You know, how close is their price? Is it anywhere close? I mean, Jayon Brown, and I loved Avery Williamson, so don't get me wrong, who's out on the market, and I wouldn't mind seeing him coming back to town. But we know Avery struggled in pass coverage. Jayon Brown is fantastic in pass coverage. He's all around the football. The $10 million, people said Jayon Brown was going to get Matt Milano money. Okay, did he get Matt Milano money?
He did not.
No, he got like $5 million, right? Okay, so to me, Jayon Brown's been a more productive player for the Titans than Rashaan Evans, and the money wasn't out there for him. You know, if you're going to play that position and get paid, you have to be an elite player. Leighton Vander Esch is not getting his 5th-year option picked up. He's going to be looking for a job next year. I mean, the Cowboys just drafted his replacement like 12th overall. I mean, at that position, because you don't rush the quarterback, because you don't pile up sacks, it can be hard to pile up those eye-popping statistics. But, you know, the great ones stand out. They really, I mean, Ray Lewis stood out. Mike Singletary stood out. And I'm not saying you've got to be those guys to get $10 million a year, but to get paid $10 million over a year over drafting another guy or getting $5 million a year, that's a big difference. By the way, $5 million a year is a lot of money in my book. It's not $10 million though. And I know everybody thinks that they're the guy or their guy's the guy or their team just misused them, you know, miscast them, didn't take advantage of their trade. You know, Rashaan has ability, and he has made some plays in the backfield for this football team on run defense. But we all know he didn't have a great year last year. He should be motivated to have a great year this year. Hopefully he can draw half as many flags as he did last year. I hope he has a great year, and I hope he gets $10 million. But right now, I would definitely, if we were at the blackjack table, be pushing my chips on the table that he's not getting over $9 million a year next year.
Corey Curtis from News 2 on the line with us, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Corey, how surprised were you that they did not draft a tight end in this draft, and what do you think that means moving forward? Are they just that confident in Anthony Ferguson? Could there be a trade coming of some kind? What did you make of that and how that went down this weekend?
I agree with whether it be free agency or the trade. Going into this draft, I thought there was going to be a third wave of free agency because there are a ton of veterans on the market who haven't wanted to sign for the peanuts that are out there because of the salary cap situation. And teams have kind of, I think, tiptoed the minefield here and wanted to see what they got in the draft, and then they go back out shop again and see what they can get on the discount dial. And so I think that's what the Titans are doing at tight end. I think, look, I loved Tommy Tremble and wanted to see them draft Tommy Tremble. I think he's a devastating blocker and a very athletic guy, and I think he's going to be a great player for the Carolina Panthers. But they've got to have an idea of who's either A, available, or B, going to be available. Tyler Eifert is available, and you wouldn't have to pay very much to bring him in here and get a guy who can give you some quality snaps. Or is O.J. Howard going to be available in Tampa? We know Zach Ertz is going to be available in Philadelphia, but he's done. They may not think he's done. Everything we saw last year said he's done. But there are going to be guys available, and I have a hard time believing that they're not going to bring in a veteran of some kind. And also Michael Pruitt's out there, and he could be back as well.
Who's kicking for this team, Corey?
You know what? It's amazing to me because, guys, we've watched this game for a long time, right? And we have seen when you don't take this kicking game seriously, it loses you games, right?
Yeah.
I mean, It does. When you need those guys to make those kicks. I didn't dislike Tucker McCann and what I saw from him last year in camp. So maybe with the year of development, he can be the guy. And maybe this kid from Ohio State is the real deal. But there's no veteran in camp, and they didn't spend a draft pick on a guy, so they didn't like him that much. And it's scary. It's scary. My hunch is this. They bring those two guys in. They see what they've got through mini camps, and when they get to training camp, and if they're a week into training camp and they're like, oh, my God, we're going to lose games, they're going to call up Steven and have him come back. That's my gut.
Corey, last thing for you here. The Predators, a massive win on Saturday against Dallas. What did you think of that game and how it played out? And do you think the Predators essentially locked down their playoff spot with that win on Saturday night against Dallas?
No, I don't think they locked it down. I think it was a huge win without question. I think a 2-point or 4-point win would have locked it down. The 1-point win, certainly put them in the catbird seat. They've got two huge ones coming up in Columbus, and I know some people think they got to come out with 4 points. I think they got to come out with at least 3 points. You've got to come away with at least 3 points there. I loved that game because we hyped it up to be the game of the century, and it was. It was a playoff game. Those two teams played their hearts out in that game.
Yeah.
And the moment wasn't too big for either of them. And I think that was what I took away from it the most, is the enormity of the game was there, and both teams handled it and played really, really well and produced a great hockey game and showed that whichever one makes it to the postseason is going to earn it. Okay? So, one of them's not going to make it, all right? And they'll be disappointed. I don't think that makes either one of them a failure because the three teams at the top of the division are outstanding. And you've got two teams who struggled out of the gate and are fighting to the finish here. And you could say the playoffs have been underway for these two teams for 2 weeks. And we were in this situation with Barry Trotz for 5 straight years where the playoffs started in January or February. Just to get in. And that's where this team is at now. And it's fun to watch. And it's fun to see this team find its hunger again. To look like a hungry hockey team, a team that wants it. Because that, I'll get hokey 80s on us here. That eye of the tiger was gone. It was gone. And it's back. And that's fun to see.
Corey Curtis from News 2 has been our guest here on Robby and Rexrode. Joins us every Monday here at 8 o'clock on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Corey, great stuff as always, my friend. Appreciate you taking time to join us this morning.
All right, exciting weekend and big week ahead. Let's have some fun.
Absolutely. Corey Curtis every week here at 8 o'clock on Robby and Rexrode. When we come back, we'll react a little bit to what Corey had to say there and also get into the tight end position for the Titans as well. Nobody drafted at tight end. What in the world are the Titans going to do at that position moving forward? We'll do that next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ryan Porth here with you on this Monday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. Streaming live on Periscope, on YouTube, and on Twitch as well. We'll have Preds Pick to Click, brought to you by New Amsterdam Vodka, coming up at 8:45 later this hour, so make sure you're tuned in for that. Thanks to Corey Curtis for News 2 for joining us in the last segment. And, Joe, an interesting kind of point brought up by Corey Curtis here when we start looking at the draft for the Titans and the holes that are still there with this group. No tight ends selected by the Titans in the 2021 NFL Draft. We know that Anthony Firkser will be back. We know that Jeff Swaim is back as well. Michael Pruitt still out there and still available, but no tight end drafted. What did you think of that? How surprised were you that the Titans did not draft a tight end at all in the 2021 draft?
Okay, first of all, I got to get my last word in on Corey. Now he can't respond back to me. On the Rashaan Evans point, here's the point. I agree that Rashaan Evans is not going to get a deal like that. He's going to move on and get a smaller deal. But the point is, if you're the Titans and you actually want a long-term deal with him, I think you pick up it's $10 million. You pick up the option. That's not the Corey Davis $18 million. That it's like Corey Davis could be like, okay, man, we're not picking up $18 million. You get that, right? Of course I do, and I think he did. So you have a chance. If Rashaan Evans has the kind of season everybody hopes he does next year, he's still going to move on. You're not going to get him. So to me, like it's disingenuous. We want to sign you to a long-term deal. I mean, the end of the sentence is if you play way better. And, again, then they're not going to keep him because someone else will give him that money. He's going to move on. I mean, Rashaan Evans is probably going to play one more year with the Titans, and he's probably not going to get anything near what he wants, but they're not going to sign him to that long-term deal.
Well, I think the draft pick tells you exactly how they're feeling right now. I mean, I think just reading the tea leaves, they're not really expecting Rashaan Evans to be there after this year.
Right, and if you had Evans and Rice – like
somebody's got to cover somebody.
Right. To Corey's point, like you gotta have coverage. Like I said, I would rather have two Jayons if you could find another Jayon. You're not going with two Rashans or two Monty Rices. I mean, you just are not going to do that. But as for tight end, I also would like to go to the text line. Do we have a name on? We don't have a name, but we were going back and forth on the Hayden Hurst, O.J. Howard. I didn't realize Howard's cap hit is $6 million. I didn't realize this was his option year. I swear he was just drafted like 3 years ago. Wasn't he 2 years ago? O.J. Howard was a 17 pick, so this is his option year with the Bucs, making $6 million. And Hayden Hurst's cap hit is, according to the texture here, 1.9. So I apologize for that one. I did not realize that, and that makes me a little bit shakier on the whole O.J. Howard thing. I don't think you're trading for him for that. Well, based on what he has demonstrated.
And this coming out from Jeremy Fowler about 15 minutes ago, the Atlanta Falcons are not exercising the fifth-year option on Hayden Hurst, tight end. Per source, he'll be a free agent in 2022. So maybe Hayden Hurst, now that Atlanta has drafted Kyle Pitts, maybe that could be a trade target for the Titans as they move forward here. Like it's just fascinating to me that they didn't take anybody. There's no tight end selected in this draft. Now, maybe it is as simple, and we've had people on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, mention this. Maybe they do just like Anthony Firkser that much, and they've got faith that he could come in and be an inline tight end, and he can be an every down tight end for this team. I mean, I still, even if that's the case, would imagine you'd want to bring somebody in via the draft and add some depth to the tight end room at some point and not just have it be you and Jeff Swaim as the only two proven guys at the NFL level with Firkser. But, I mean, I was kind of blown away that they didn't draft anybody in the 2021 draft at tight end.
Well, Corey brought up Tremble. I think that's who they were taking. I think that's who they were taking at 85. So he went, 83 or 82?
I can't remember exactly, but it's one of the two, yeah.
So then they bail out of there. I mean, I think that's exactly the guy, and I think he would have fit as not 83.
Yep.
Not a highly productive guy, but Notre Dame just didn't use him in that way. But a bruising blocker, a guy you put in this offense, and it's like, okay, now you develop him as a pass catcher, and I think it would have totally made sense. So They obviously didn't think much of Brevin Jordan. That was one guy that we talked about a lot going in the draft. That's, I guess, the one Texans pick that I kind of like, Brevin Jordan. Weren't interested there, and they get through the whole thing and don't take anyone. I was very surprised. I thought at least take a flyer on somebody with one of those last 2 picks. Again, Briley Moore is a pretty good undrafted free agent pickup. They also got the Alabama guy who I'd never heard of.
Yeah.
But he played at Alabama, so he was the 19 guys get drafted from Alabama. He's the one who doesn't. I think it actually was 10. But yeah, it was surprising. And there's another move to come there. There's got to be.
This is an easy second guess comment, but if they like Tommy Tremble that much and he was one of the only tight ends that they wanted to draft, why weren't they as aggressive to trade up to get him as they were to trade up to get Fitzpatrick?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. You don't know. You try to get intel on people, on what's going to happen. I'd love to know what they would have done if Ojulari would have come to them.
Yeah.
But
like at 53. You mean?
Yes, exactly.
Right.
Yeah. Because he goes just a couple picks before that. Yeah, I mean the move to get Fitzpatrick was aggressive. That's coming quite a ways up to grab him, and who knows if they needed to. I mean, I don't know. That's where I always get very interested in we always talk about misinformation and everything and putting stuff out there. And I mean, like the 49ers, that was brilliant. The 49ers, keep people guessing the whole time. And apparently, you guys talk about Mac Jones for a few weeks, right?
Yeah.
But how effective are teams at finding out what other teams really think? To have, because there's a lot of work.
Question.
There's a lot of work put into it, but clearly that's imperfect too.
John Robinson was asked about not drafting a tight end after the draft took place over the weekend. Here's what Titans GM John Robinson had to say.
On the tight end position, not drafting a tight end, how close were you there at various points? Is it disappointing not to get one? And how would you assess where you are at that position right now?
Yeah, Joe, we were close a couple of times. We had some discussions yesterday, some today. We like the group that we've got, and we'll continue to evaluate players that available here after the draft, as we start that process. And I've gotten several calls from general managers on other teams that have players on their roster. So the roster building process is never over. But we're excited with the group that we got back, with Ferk and with Swaim and Hudson and Adam Pinckney, who was, a good player coming out of Vanderbilt, and Parker Hesse. We'll see how those guys come in and compete, and continue to evaluate the players that are available as we continue to move through the offseason here.
So I hear that from John Robinson, Joe, and it makes me think when you factor in that they didn't draft one in this draft and those comments there, I would have to think they're either going and getting a free agent at tight end or they're making a trade at tight end. It's difficult for me to imagine them heading into training camp and not having anybody else that's been added to that group. That's just the way I read those comments.
Yeah, I would think so too. Love to know who. In the meantime, if they re-sign Pruitt, if Briley Moore turns out good, if they like Pinckney, is that enough with Swaim and Ferkser?
That'd be a tough sell.
Yeah, I feel like you've got to have someone a little bit more proven, or it's just an important position. I mean, I expect them to play two tight end a lot. They have in the past. And Ferkser, I think, still has limitations, and it's not like John Robinson really threw cold water on that idea either going into this process. So who could they trade for and who can they afford?
Yeah, those are important questions as we move forward here. It's just I look at that position right now, unless you've got a ton of faith in Anthony Ferkser, and maybe they do. Maybe they do. I would imagine that gets addressed at some point down the line here for the remainder of this offseason. When we come back, we'll get back into the Nashville Predators. A huge win for the Predators over the weekend against the Dallas Stars. What do we need to see out of the Predators in this final full week in the regular season? What do they need to do to get into the playoffs? All that coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game.
Ekholm down the left wing. Ekholm goes behind the net, taking wraparound, and it's tipped in the net. Eric Haula is there, and the Predators win it overtime.
Well, what a game. I think, both teams were going to come in and play as hard as they could. I thought it was a hard-fought battle by both teams. Wasn't a lot of room on the ice, lots of physicality. I thought both goaltenders played really well. Playoff-style game, playoff-style atmosphere. Our fans were fantastic. And, just like the fact that we were able to find a way to win and stay with it against a really good team. And it was a good night for us.
A big win for the Nashville Predators on Saturday night. They get it done 1-0 in overtime against the Dallas Stars. And as John Hines, Predators head coach, pointed out there, a playoff-style game for the Predators, and they find a way to get it done. Now 3 points up on the Dallas Stars. Stars with one game ahead as we kind of head down the final full week of the regular season here in the NHL. Welcome back in. Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. And speaking of the Predators, 102.5 The Game and T-Mobile have teamed up to give away a hockey home gating party. Text the word GAME to 615-737-1025. That's GAME to 615-737-1025. Now to enter for a chance to win a Dos Equis prize pack, which includes a case of beer, dessert from Nothing But Cakes, a T-Mobile prize pack, and food provided by 312 Pizza Company in Germantown. You must be 21 or older to enter. So I was really impressed with the Predators on Saturday night and just the game from both teams. I mean, Dallas played well. I thought it was a good back-and-forth hockey game, a playoff-styled hockey game, and two really good defensive teams that played that way for the most part on Saturday night. The Predators find a way to get it done in overtime. Matthias Ekholm on a good wraparound attempt after it was kind of funny. They caught Dallas on a line change, and Duchesne made a pretty good pass up the ice, a stretch pass to Haula, and it took a hop like right over his stick in that last part of it. And I thought, man, that was a heck of an opportunity they just missed. And then they find a way to get the puck back. Ekholm with a wraparound attempt, and then Haula finishes it off. I thought an incredibly entertaining game from start to finish. When you hear the final score is 1-0, maybe you don't feel that way. But I thought it was playoff hockey to a T on Saturday night at Bridgestone Arena.
Great game, great atmosphere. I mean, it sounded like way more than 5,700 people in there. I thought they even had one of the timeouts. It's funny because Hall after the game mentioned he's like there was that one timeout, and it was like, oh man, you just have no idea,
yeah.
Hall. But that was really good. It was for a 0-0 game through 60 minutes. I was entertained all 60 minutes. Heck of a win. I'm reading something right now, Robby, from our friend Adam Vingen about Saros, by the way. Did you see the Mark Lazarus tweet about the heart?
I did.
That's an interesting I never would have thought of that, honestly. And we know McDavid's winning it. I mean, McDavid is...
If he doesn't get 100% of the vote, whoever doesn't vote for him should have their vote taken away.
Yeah. But the idea that Saros could get some heart votes...
I could buy that.
The MVP thing in any sport, it's always... And I go back and forth sometimes because value to team versus best player on best team. Usually best player on best team or greatest player among the group of really good teams.
Yeah.
That's usually the winner, right? Sometimes it's just a dominant player, just dominant individually, even if the team isn't very good. But value to team? I mean, this stat from Vingen here, okay, Saros has saved an extra 12.1 goals since mid-March. Okay?
Yeah. That's
almost double the amount of the next closest guy. And in his first 13 games, he allowed an extra 2.9. I mean, it's one thing how dramatic from the beginning, just for him to now, but also how much beyond the rest of the league. GSAE, Merzlikins is 6.7. Vasilevsky 6.4. Saros 12.1.
Yeah.
Hellebuck 6.2. That's compelling.
I mean, look, I will say this. I've kind of just been operating under the assumption that Andrei Vasilevsky is going to win the Vezina Trophy, and he probably still is. Each game that goes by, I'm thinking, man, Saros has a good case. He's got a really good case to win the Vezina. Now, I don't think it's going to happen. You got to remember the Vezina is voted on by general managers, so it's not a hockey writer vote. It's general managers around the league.
Does that hurt him or help him?
I don't know.
I mean, people who hate media might say it helps Saros.
I would say that helps, honestly.
They may be right. You may be right because, won't they sit back, take it all in, and say, okay, yeah, we've all been talking about Vasilevsky. It was a done deal. But after all the information's in, if Saros is great in these last 4 they get in, I think he's got a shot.
Marc-Andre Fleury is also in that conversation.
He's in there. I mean, look, Saros has got a .945 save percentage since March 15th. .945. I mean, he's been unbelievable. Look, Connor McDavid's going to win the Hart Trophy, and it really shouldn't be all that close. I mean, the dude's got 87 points in 49 games. And when you adjust that out to a full season, he's having like a top 10 greatest offensive season in the history of the NHL. So he's going to win the Hart Trophy. He should win the Hart Trophy, and he should get 100% of the first-place votes. Could I buy UC Saros sneaking in and getting some votes for third or for second by some people? Sure. Like, where would this Predators team be without Saros? What would the point differential be? Like, they would be how many points out of a playoff spot right now?
Yeah.
Double digits?
They were in 26th place when he and they completely turned it around. And again, like, the thing is, he has the best numbers, and if he just, like his first 13 games, 3-1 goals against, .895 save percentage. If he was just like so then, he'd be like, he'd have dominantly the best numbers in the league.
What would his numbers look like without that first game in Dallas where they scored like 1,000 power play goals?
Right. Yeah. And the crazy thing is, too, so his last 20 games is a 1.83. That includes the 6 he gave up last week when he was great.
Yeah.
But when we bring it back to Saturday's game, Saros is great, but I actually think that the bigger story of that was how they played in front of him.
I agree.
Especially from one game to the next.
I agree.
3-day break. They had some practice. They worked on some stuff. They were really much, much better.
They were. And look, Dallas is not some offensive juggernaut that they're playing up against. I mean, there's a huge difference right now in trying to defend Florida and trying to defend Dallas. And we all recognize that. I mean, Dallas was shut out the game before as well. So there is a difference, but, I mean, we read off the stat that Vingan put out there earlier, 27 slot shots allowed in the 7-4 loss last Tuesday. They allowed 4 against Dallas. I mean, you're only allowing 4 of those in a game. You like your chances. I mean, you're gonna win most of the time when that's the case.
Both of those numbers are ridiculous.
Yeah.
Ridiculously high, ridiculously low. I mean, giving up 27, I'm trying to think of I always like to, that's like giving up 14 dunks,
Yeah.
I mean, just Olay to the rim. I mean, and then you get it to 4. Saros had a couple. He had the one puck that was tipped where he got just a little bit of his glove on it, and deflected it away. He had a couple big time saves, but again, the other night he gives up 6 goals, and I'm like, man, that guy was great tonight.
Yeah. It's been just amazing to watch the run that he's been on, and I assume he's back in there tonight for the Predators against Columbus. Our friends at MoneyPuck.com, after the game Saturday night, the Predators now 83.5% in terms of their likelihood to get in the playoffs. Dallas down to just 16.5%. Chicago at 0, according to MoneyPuck.com.
0, not even a
0.
Are they mathematically eliminated?
They're not.
So you can't give them a 0.1%.
There's not a 0.1% chance at all. It's 0.
It's almost, I feel like, an afterthought to some extent. This, Columbus, and then what's it look like when they get to Carolina? What's Dallas do, all this stuff? These Columbus games, this happens all the time in this league.
I know.
Happens all the time in this league. With a team that's just young guys, and they're playing out the string, but they're like, hey, we could screw something up for these guys. Let's go get them. So,
I mean, it took overtime for Carolina to beat Columbus. What was that, Saturday night? I think that was Saturday night.
Yeah. Tampa Bay has massive incentive to get the 1 to get to play Dallas or Nashville.
Yeah.
And they lost to Detroit this weekend.
Tampa Bay's not going to be in the Final Four this year.
Wow.
They're limping down the stretch. They don't look very good at all.
They're missing 2 pretty important guys.
They are, sure. But, We see it all the time where teams that aren't playing well down the stretch, as good as Tampa Bay is and as good as Stamkos and Kucherov would be to get back in the lineup.
Sure. Look, I picked Carolina in the preseason to make the top 4. So I agree with you.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. Getting those two guys back, pretty big deal.
How well were the Preds playing down the stretch in 2017?
They're playing pretty well.
When you look at mid-January to mid-April that season, their record was pretty good.
Yeah.
I mean, the last couple weeks they did lose a handful of games, but for the most part, since mid-January that year, they were playing pretty well.
It's just down I guess more the real tight down the stretch. They had a couple losses that.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
That
Tampa
screwed
Bay,
them over, and then you get to play Chicago.
I don't know Tampa Bay's record
yourself.
since the start of March, but they started the season just
blazing.
On fire.
Yeah.
I'm going to look during the break and see what Tampa Bay's record has been since like early March.
Good, more math.
Guarantee you, and it isn't all that great.
Let's quickly go to our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Trevor texted in, what if the Predators get Tampa Bay in the first round and Saros stays on a heater? Would the Vezina Trophy happen for him if they win? It's just a regular season award, so the first round wouldn't have any bearing on it.
Yep. So he's going to have to.
He's got 4 games left.
So hey, listen.
Finish his case.
Finish out with 5 straight shutouts. You got your first.
Yeah.
Finish out with 5 straight.
Be in pretty good shape at that point.
Yeah, you might have a shot.
Save percentage of 960.
Yeah. I mean, he should be when these GMs. I mean, he should be top of mind.
Yeah.
He should be right there with Vasilevsky.
When we come back, it is time for Pred's Pick to Click, brought to you by New Amsterdam Vodka. Be the first caller at 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025 to guess the goal scorer for tonight's game for the Predators against Columbus. If you get it right, you'll win a prize pack brought to you by New Amsterdam Vodka. We'll do that next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game.
And the score!
Who's going to find the back of the net in tonight's Preds game? Robby and Rexrode make their picks to click and welcome a listener to do the same. Pick to Click is brought to you by New Amsterdam Vodka, the official vodka of the NHL.
And it is time for Preds Pick to Click here on Robby and Rexrode, brought to you by New Amsterdam Vodka. The Predators taking on the Columbus Blue Jackets tonight. All right, people. Predators have a big win on Saturday night against the Dallas Stars. They get it done in dramatic fashion and get a huge win, up 3 points on the Stars. And here we are doing Preds Pick to Click. We need your participation. 615-737-1025. 615-737-1025. Be the first caller to participate in today's version of Preds Pick to Click. I know it can be intimidating. I know you don't want to be wrong. But look, I've been wrong the whole year pretty much, and I'm still in this competition.
You kind of have to be, but yeah.
You still haven't scored a goal in regulation.
I have not scored one in regulation.
And also as a listener,
it is pretty incredible. Like, here we are. We have got 3 games left of Preds Pick to Click in the regular season, and I've gotten 1, and it was in overtime. I've not got 1 right in regulation the whole year.
I mean, it's been to me, it's crazy how many games we've had where they've actually had a bunch of goals and no one got it right. 4 people, not just you. So it's 7-7, right? 7-7-3-1.
7 for the listeners, 7 for Joe Rexrode, 3 for Ryan Porth, 1 for Robby Stanley.
So you can also be part of a collective competing with me to beat me as the listeners.
Yeah,
we have two competitions going on. I think we can. I mean, right? Basically, this is it.
I mean, I literally can't catch you in the regular season.
You can't catch me. I mean, I guess if the Preds went on a playoff run,
Porth can't catch you either.
It's possible,
in the regular season.
Right?
Yeah, in the playoffs. Yeah,
so they have to make the playoffs for that. So basically, it's the winners bracket, the listeners against me.
Yes.
And then it's the Gus Macker toilet bowl
yes.
with you and Porth. So we've got
a winner.
We've got someone who wants to jump in on this.
We'll do this here in just a second. I can't believe you called it the toilet bowl.
Hey, like I said, man, those toilet bowl trophies at Gus Macker,
yes,
valuable commodities.
I'm coming for you, Joe.
Let's go to our 1025 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in today's participant in Preds Pick to Click, brought to you by New Amsterdam Vodka. Jay is today's participant. Jay, thanks for calling in to Robby and Rexrode.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's awesome. Thank you.
Absolutely. So, Jay, the Predators taking on the Columbus Blue Jackets tonight. Who is your pick to click for the Predators in this game?
My pick to click, I would guess, would be I want to pick you on. Ellie Tolvanen.
There we go. Jay going with Ellie Tolvanen.
I actually participated in a Gus Macker. You had 4 people. Yes. Sometimes you always had a backup.
Right.
I was the backup who never played in a 3-on-3 because you had 4. So I do know Gus Macker, but Ellie Tolvanen. Go with that.
Hey, thanks for the call, Jay.
Hey, Jay, wait, hold on. Where'd you play? What Gus? Which one?
Somewhere in Indiana. A friend of mine his father used to sell some key jeans. He was a salesman, and we'd go to big blue stores in Indiana, and we would travel around, but he always entered us in this Gus Macker in Indiana.
Nice.
Very nice.
Good stuff.
Jay,
someone's got to sit.
That's right. Someone's got to sit. Jay, we wish you good luck in today's competition.
They made me sit by the scoreboard and just keep scoring until they absolutely needed me.
That's right. Appreciate it, Jay. Thanks for calling in.
Thank you.
So, Jay selecting Ellie Tolvanen in the competition today.
So, real quick at Gus Macker, too, they have people called the Gus Busters. So, you call your own fouls.
Yeah.
But the Gus Busters, if there's a fight, would come in. And then there's Super Gus Busters, which are basically like bar bouncers if there's really a problem. So you got the Gus Busters, the Super Gus Busters.
Did you ever get one of those calls?
They came over. They came over to our court.
I'm sure they did.
We played a team that basically every time they missed a shot, they just started calling fouls.
Yeah, that would drive me nuts.
I mean, it's like, okay, at some point we have to fight.
Yes, we've reached that point now. So Jay selecting Ellie Tolvanen in the competition. Robby Stanley, the first pick today. Give me number 9. Philip Forsberg is back in there. I'm going back with him. Give me Philip Forsberg as my selection today in Preds Pick to Click. I've not been able to select him in a long time. He is now eligible once again. Give me number 9.
If the Preds can get on that power play a few times tonight.
I know.
I like the chances for both you and Jay. At least one of you is going to register.
Probably will be Jay. We'll see.
Probably.
See how that goes. So Ellie Tolvanen selected by Jay. I have selected Philip Forsberg in the competition today. Ryan Porth, you have the next selection in Pred's Pick to Click, brought to you by New Amsterdam Vodka. Ryan Porth, your selection in this competition is what? Or I guess I should say is whom?
Or what? You could say like a yak.
Yeah, I mean,
you go with
The
one of the
yak
herd,
or
the
ox, the colt.
Could do that.
I could do that. Give me Granny.
Mikhail Granlund. Off the board. Playing very well for the Nashville Predators. So Tolvanen selected, Forsberg selected, Mikhail Granlund selected as well. Joe Rexrode, you round us up today. Your selection in Pred's Pick to Click. I think I know where you're going.
All due respect to Joe Davey on Rex Croak.
I know you're not going there. I know where you're going.
Do you?
Yep.
Well, I could be wrong. I'm sure I'm wrong. But I feel like I'm 2 for 2 with this guy. But I'm definitely 2 for something, and it's not a lot. I haven't picked him a lot.
You're going exactly where I thought you were.
But, yeah, I'm going to go with Matt Duchene.
Yep.
After the way he played the other night, the way he's playing. We got our guy Gover out there, the Duchater. That's Jeremy K. Duchater Gover.
You have to say that word very carefully.
Yes, I absolutely. You got to make sure you emphasize on the hater. And I'm going to go with Matt Duchene.
Here we go, Matt Duchene. You are now. I don't think you're 2 for 2 selecting Matt Duchene, but you are probably 2 for 4, 2 for 5, something like that.
Yeah, pretty good.
Yeah, you've done a pretty good percentage.
At some point, you got to play the percentages. So
absolutely.
And again, when we have him on Wednesday, if he scores tonight, I am going to demand. I'm going to demand some gratitude.
Well, so now that we've gotten some bodies back in the lineup here, a little bit more star power in Pred's Pick to Click. Brought to you by New Amsterdam Vodka. Forsberg selected, Tolvanen selected, Granlund, Duchene. I think you feel pretty good about that coming into this game.
No one ever picks Holla. Dude's been scoring.
I don't know that anyone has picked Holla the entire year.
He's been scoring.
Did you?
Yeah. He didn't score that night, but I did pick him.
Okay, all right.
Well, because the Preds are going to win 5-2 tonight, and it'll be Holla, Yarncroke, Johansson.
Yeah.
Arvidsson will come back and score.
Tanner's no.
And there you go. Yeah, one of the yaks will score.
One of the yaks. And on Twitter says, "Yep, Duchene, it's going to happen." And very confident in your pick.
I feel good about it.
You should.
He looked good. No matter what Duchater says, he looked good the other night.
Got a text that says, "It wasn't letting me call in. My pick is Matt Duchene." So Matt Duchene, a very popular pick today in Pred's Pick to Click. Brought to you by New Amsterdam Vodka.
It as in your phone?
I don't know. I'm sure they were not calling my cell phone. Would be my guess. Hope not.
Well, I mean, the comment, "It wasn't letting me call in." What does that mean?
I guess his phone, maybe. I don't know.
Don't blame us for your phone problems.
I don't know. We'll find out. What do the Predators need to do this week? So they got 4 games left. You got 2 against Columbus, and then you close out with 2 against Carolina as well. Of these 4 games, Joe Rexrode, with a 3-point lead on the Stars and the schedule that Dallas has, how many of these 3 do you think the Predators need to win? Of the 8 points, how many points do you think they need to grab?
It's a good question. I'm gonna put Dallas. I'm gonna say Dallas gets the 2 in their game in hand. Okay.
Okay.
So let's just. So you got 4 games apiece, 1 point difference. I think the Preds better get 6. Right?
I don't know. Honestly, I don't see Dallas beating Florida. And they might get Tampa once. I don't see any way they get Tampa twice.
So that's okay. So there's 6. Yeah.
But, that's 4.
And
then you got the 2 against Chicago. Now, Dallas probably picking up some points against Chicago. You would think. So that's 8 right there. Or, 6 right there that they would have. So if you're the Predators,
you win by a point.
Yeah.
If you get 6.
Here's what my advice to the Predators would be. Take care of business against Columbus. You get all 4 points against Columbus, you're probably going to be sitting in pretty good position to where if you're going into Carolina game, maybe you've got to win one, maybe you don't. I mean, that could be a good position to be in. If you lose one to Columbus and you need to go beat Carolina, and Carolina's still got something to play for, that's not a spot you want to be in if you're the Predators. That's not gone well for you so far this year.
It has not. When are Dallas? Dallas also the last two Saturday, Monday? Do you know?
Yes, they are Sunday and Monday for Dallas against Chicago.
So it's
back to back.
It's a back-to-back. Okay. Could be interesting. It'd be very surprising if the Preds going to the Carolina series all set, right? It's possible.
It's possible.
It's possible. I mean, Florida's kind of on the fringe. I mean, Florida is pretty much going to be playing in that 2-3 game, right?
I mean,
they have a mathematical chance, but they're up against.
They got to win. They need to win all 3 of their games left, which I think you feel good about if you're the Predators because they're playing Dallas next.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, the fact that it's this next game, they still are alive right now. Tampa Bay is wobbling. It's possible. So
by the way, Tampa
helps.
Bay 11-8-1 in their last 20 games.
So not great.
Pretty average.
I mean, not terrible, but not great.
Definitely not to their standards.
What were they before that? 24-6-2.
That is correct.
Yeah, it's a bit of a difference there.
You can still find a lot of examples of runs in the Stanley Cup playoffs, though, with teams that aren't red hot going in.
There's no cookie cutter example of how you win a Stanley Cup.
Yep.
But just the eye test with Tampa Bay, I watched a good portion of both of those games against Detroit this weekend. They look like they just have their feet kicked up and ready to get to the playoffs, and that is dangerous.
It is, but it's like the team that just won it, and it's like enough of this crap already. Seeing the same teams over and over. My God, we've seen the Red Wings again. I think they'll be okay.
Those mighty Detroit Red Wings. When we come back, we'll be joined by Darren McFarland, host of Darren Donick and Chase, also handles the Predators' pre- and post-game duties for the Nashville Predators Radio Network. That's next. This is Robby and Rexrode, live from the Wholesale Link Studios, powered by RumbleOn.com. You're on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in. Final hour of Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ryan Porth here with you on this Monday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. A massive win for the Predators over the weekend. And to help us talk more about that, we welcome in Darren McFarland, host of Darren Donica Chase, also handles the Predators pre- and post-game duties for the National Predators Radio Network. I'll be on with Darren tonight at 5 o'clock in the pregame show for the Predators, leading into puck drop at 6 o'clock against the Columbus Blue Jackets. Darren, what's going on, brother? How we doing?
That, folks, is called a radio tease. Well done, Robby.
Thank you.
To begin pregame. Happy rainy Monday to you guys.
It is quite wet out there, and it has not been a very good day outside, but it was a great night for the Nashville Predators on Saturday night against the Dallas Stars. What did you think of the game, the atmosphere, and ultimately the result for the Predators to get that one done in a, I thought, very fascinating, very entertaining game against Dallas?
I thought it was electric, Robby. I know I've said this line before with you guys back when they were starting to get things together and they were working hard. I said, this is a really fun team. If you don't enjoy watching this team, then they're just not going to get you. If you didn't enjoy Saturday night, then I guess this sport or this team just isn't for you, because I don't know what there wasn't to like. I thought the atmosphere was as good as it's been. It did not feel like 33% in there at all. I know the players fed off of it. John Hines talked about it. The players talked about it. It was just fantastic in there. It was just a fun hockey game between two rivalry teams that don't like each other. That, it was chippy. It had a playoff feel. It was low scoring. It was hard. I mean, they built walls in front of the goalies. I mean, I was calling it Saturday night Fort Saros and Fort Hudobin, and credit to the play in front of those goalies, because they were making it extremely difficult for both teams in and around the net, and it was just all around a fun hockey game. It was electric in there. It really was. It was standing ovations. It just felt like old times, and you can only imagine if that's what it felt like at 33%. I think we'll all welcome if they get the opportunity to have it back at full capacity, if they can make the playoffs. But overall, I just thought it was a fantastic game. This team is fun to watch. This stretch since the middle of March, they just work hard. They're just a fun team. I didn't really have this feeling about last year's team. I do about this year's team. I didn't have it early on, but really since they've figured this out, and this is the style they're bringing, to the rink night in and night out, they're just fun, man. They make you feel proud, right? We all work hard. All the people that show up to Bridgestone Arena, all the people that support this team, all of us who cover, man, we work hard. And you know what? You feel like them. They feel like you. And I think the fans can relate to this team, because it feels like they have a hard hat when they're out there on the ice, and it just, they deserve to win that game. I said it in pregame. I said this is going to be a grinded out, very low scoring game. I said it in pregame, and it played out that way. And overall, it was a lot of fun. 4 more to go.
No, I agree. Look, setting aside the future and how far this group can go together and all that stuff, I think you got to enjoy this team at this point. And I feel like most people in this city are. But, I mean, this is the time to just they're entertaining. And that's what this is. So I'm with you, Darren. I feel like, it's been a heck of a few weeks for them. And you mentioned the play in front of the goalies Saturday. I agree. It's amazing. Like, Saros gets a shutout, and yet I was much more impressed with him on the 6-goal night against Florida, because he just was put in so many more bad situations. But we were talking earlier on the show about Saros, because Vingan has a piece about the Hart Trophy. Maybe some votes for him, which I honestly hadn't thought of before this weekend. And then obviously you got the Vezina thing, which I think he really should be in there for real. But stat.
Goal saved above the expectation.
GSAE.
Oh, we're digging deep into the stats.
Yes,
real
deep.
Okay.
So he saved an extra 12.
Somebody go get Willie.
Yeah, he saved an extra 12.1 goals over this 20-game stretch, and the next closest, those guys are all in the 6s, Vasilevsky, Hellebuck. Anyway, long way of saying I think he should be in there for that, and the Hart stuff is interesting. What do you think about that?
I think I'm back in school. I need a tutor. I'm sorry. I don't know. What did you just say? I feel like I'm back in school again. I feel lost.
It's the GSAE, man.
Is there going to be an extra session after class?
Is that algebra?
I've got to stay afterwards. And
I have an extra protractor.
I think the reason we haven't thought of Saros for the Hart Trophy is because it's already been predetermined. I mean, who's kidding who? We know who's winning the Hart.
Oh, we know who's winning for sure.
I mean, it's no disrespect, and Adam does a great job, and he's digging deep, and he's bringing something to the table that none of us have thought about. But I think the reason none of us have thought about it is because it's a foregone conclusion. We already know who's going to win. To me, the real discussion is, where is he in the Vezina landscape? I think right now when you think about what he's done since, this stretch in the last, let's say, 6-7 weeks, he's a Vezina finalist, and in some cases, I guess if we really want to compare notes, I mean, you can make a case, I'm sure, especially if you dig deep enough, you could probably make cases where you could vote for him to win the Vezina. I mean, I know that we've all kind of had Vasilevsky as kind of the shoe-in most of the season. Tampa Bay is kind of, they've got their big guns out, right? They haven't had Kucherov all year. Stamkos has been out. And so that has affected their team. The play hasn't been as good in front of him, and they've been resting him. McElhaney was in there the other night in their 1-0 loss to Detroit. So, maybe they're trying to gear up for the playoffs. They haven't looked the same. I still think probably Vasilevsky's going to win it. But to me, the real discussion is how close is Saros to not only being a finalist, but how close is he to saying, hey, he should win the Vezina? Nothing. If we want to have the Hart Trophy discussion, that's fine. I mean, McDavid's going to win it. I mean, who's kidding who? So if we're talking about, is he second, is he third, is he fourth, is he in the discussion, what are we really talking about? We're talking about nothing because he's not going to win. But Vezina, that's a real discussion. I don't know. How do you guys feel about where he belongs truly in the Vezina landscape? Is he a finalist? Can you make a case that he's a winner? Where do you think?
I think so.
I think he's definitely a finalist at this point. Like, if I had to bet, I would still say Vasilevsky's probably the favorite. And the thing you got to keep in mind with the Vezina, the general managers vote on this. So I'm not sure if that helps Saros or if that hurts Saros in terms of this discussion. But the general managers are the ones voting on this award. My guess would be he's a finalist at this point. I still think Vasilevsky's probably going to win. I think Marc-Andre Fleury gets thrown in there as well with the run he's been on lately. I would say if I had to gauge it right now, he's a finalist.
He has to be, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he has to be. How could you not say he's one of the 3 best goalies in the league? I think that seems to be a bit of a stretch, the way he's played.
I would agree. I would agree 100%. Darren, the Predators get Philip Forsberg and Alexander Carrier back in the lineup on Saturday as well. Brad Richardson coming in as well. What did you think of the guys and their return? And all 3 of those guys missed pretty significant amount of time when it comes to the games played in the regular season.
What a great game to ease back into the lineup, huh?
No kidding.
No easing into that game. I thought Forsberg looked like he had been playing the entire time. There was not only was he doing his typical stuff, but he was very physical on Saturday night after missing 17 games. Carrier's missed 13. Richardson has missed most of the season. I mean, let's be honest. He hasn't been in there much. I thought all 3 of them played really well. I mean, how about that line, the third line? Obviously Cousins not in the lineup, but Haula, Duchesne, Richardson. I think you could make the case that may have been Duchesne's best game. Not only of the year, maybe that was his best game as a Predator.
He was really good.
He was really good. In fact, I'm going to agree with you, Joe. I was sitting there saying that before you made your pick. I'm like, Matt Duchesne, if you guys were asking me, would be my pick for tonight. And then you said it a couple of minutes later. I'm with you. I think Matt Duchesne is the correct answer. I would have gone the same route for tonight. I just think the way he's playing, he's going to get rewarded, and there's a real shot it happens tonight. I thought he was outstanding Saturday night. That line was outstanding. Haula has been outstanding, really, since the trade, right? Even before, a little bit before the trade deadline. But, I mean, early on, I mean, he was a healthy scratch. He was really a disappointment. I don't know how you couldn't say he wasn't a disappointment, but he has played really, really well. He's been invaluable on special teams, especially on the penalty kill. That line was good. I thought the 3 that came back in, they look fantastic. Of course, Yossi missed a good stretch. That was a scary injury. I wasn't sure he was even going to come back. He missed close to a period.
Yeah.
Thank goodness Carrier was in there. They had to roll 5 defensemen. But overall, I thought they all looked good, and this team, they pick up. You can tell it rubs off, right? Like nobody comes into the lineup and looks out of place. It's very clear they know what they have to do to play. Like you need to look like what everybody else has been doing the last 6-7 weeks, or you're not going to be in the lineup, and that's the way they play. You don't see anybody jump over the boards that hasn't played in 14 games ago. Ooh, why did John Hines play him tonight? Because they know the drill. If they go out there and they look like that, they won't be in the lineup the next night.
Darren McFarland, host of Darren, Donick, and Chase, also handles the Predators' pre- and post-game duties for the Nashville Predators Radio Network, has been our guest here on Robby and Rexrode. Joins us every Monday at 9 o'clock. You can also catch him every weekday from 10 to 2 here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Darren, great stuff, my friend, and we'll see you tonight at 5 o'clock on the pregame show as well.
Hey, this summer, let's get a Gus Macker team together. Let's do it.
I'm in.
Just as long as you have a doctor on standby, we can do that.
So it's the three of us. So who's the fourth who doesn't really play?
Chase McCabe gets some rebounding.
Let's have tryouts. Why not? Let's have game tryouts.
Let's do that.
As long as McCabe is taking part in those tryouts.
Yes.
Lay up line to start.
That's right. Darren, appreciate you, brother.
All right. Thank you, guys.
When we come back, we'll react a little bit to what Darren had to say there. Also get back into the Titans as well. Outside of the first-round pick, which pick excites you the most from this draft? We'll do that next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. 1025 The Game and T-Mobile have partnered up to give you a chance to experience a Nashville SC game this season. Tune in later on today and every Monday to Darren, Donick, and Chase for the key word to text in. Good luck from 1025 The Game, T-Mobile, and Nashville SC. Welcome back in. Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 1025 The Game. Thanks to Darren McFarland for joining us in the last segment. Number one, to the point on Yossi, number one, I'm just glad to see that he's okay. I mean, that was a pretty rough hit that he took from Jason Robertson. I didn't think there was really anything wrong with the hit. It's just one of those things that happen. You're off the boards, and then all of a sudden your face is bouncing off the ice, and that was a pretty scary moment. And it was kind of funny, though. I mean, the Predators got to a point where they were down to 3 available defensemen. Matt Benning and Eric Goodbranson were in the box, and then all of a sudden Yossi just comes sprinting out of the locker room. He's ready to go.
That was really surprising at that point.
It was.
Because you get to a certain amount of time, and it's like, okay, so
he's not coming back.
They're looking at a concussion or whatever, whatever it may have been. Like, he's not back for the rest of this game. And yeah, it's like he was like, nah, forget it. I'm going back out there. Pretty well timed.
Pretty well timed, and played pretty well after that. Everything checked out. I mean, the move he made in overtime to draw that penalty where he cuts back to the middle on the backhand with Jason Robertson. I mean, it was just, it's vintage Roman Yossi. It was a great play. And the Predators weren't able to capitalize on the power play, but they ended up winning it 1-0 in overtime. They take on the Columbus Blue Jackets tonight. Puck drop at 6 o'clock, pregame at 5 o'clock here on ESPN 1025 The Game. Joe, let's revisit our poll question of the day at 1025 The Game on Twitter. And today's question kind of centering around the NFL draft and the selections that the Titans have made. And the poll question today is this. What would be your initial grade for the Titans in their 2021 draft class? Would it be an A, a B, a C, or the final option is D or worse? 245 votes are in. 56% say B, 31% say C, 9% say D or worse. Only 4% giving the Titans an A in this draft. B and C we thought would be probably the most likely winners. B running away with it right now. A lot of people on the text line been pretty critical of D or worse, though. There have been a lot of people on the text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com not very happy with this draft by the Titans.
This is the most, I think, negatively met draft in terms of fan reaction of John Robinson's 6 in Nashville. If someone disagrees with me, let me know. I mean, again, I'm basing that on where you base your assessments of fan opinions on. Twitter, here, other shows, et cetera, and we'll have more of that today as we go on. But I feel like this is the most upset fans have been, and it's not like it's a total, again, like the BC. That sounds about right.
Yeah,
it's very rare that like a team's draft is like completely panned in that town, right?
Right.
I mean, here and there it happens. I mean, the Bears, but like even the Bears back when they drafted Trubisky, got the franchise quarterback. Let's go, Mitch. And who's that guy? Mahomes? Oh, yeah, Texas Tech system quarterback, whatever. Anyway, Mitch Trubisky,
Watson?
Let's go.
Who's that?
And it's funny because by the way, we probably should have brought this up with Corey, but I'm glad we didn't because I don't want to hear the Bears crap.
Ugh.
The Bears finally did a good thing.
Had a pretty good draft.
The Bears did a good thing.
Yeah,
I think
so too.
Like they have a chance for a big time QB for the first time in a long time, but I do think that some of that reaction probably has to do with just how last year went. Right? I mean, you lose some leeway when you have a draft like last year's draft.
Yeah.
But there's also there were a couple head scratchers in this one.
So outside of Caleb Farley, who I think we are all very interested to see, number one, what his health looks like, but number two, if he's good to go and he can get in there in training camp, how quickly can he come in and be a good player for the Titans in the secondary? Outside of Caleb Farley with the number 22 overall pick, which pick excites you the most if you're a Titans fan? Let us know on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Joe, it's interesting because I think if I'm a Titans fan, the pick that excites me the most outside of Caleb Farley is actually at the same position. Like, I think Elijah Molden is a really good pick. Now, I would assume he's going to end up in the slot at some point. That's going to be his position at the NFL level. I think he's a really good player. I thought he would go higher than he did in this draft, and I think that the Titans were able to get him at 100 overall. I think that's a good pick. Of all the picks out here, and I consider Des Fitzpatrick as well. Obviously, wide receiver is going to be a position that garners a lot of attention. But I think of all these selections, Elijah Molden, probably the pick outside of Farley that would excite me the most if I'm a Titans fan.
I would agree, and I would think that would probably be the popular opinion. I can see some people being excited about Des Fitzpatrick. I think Des Fitzpatrick is one of those guys. He was rated lower than that, and yet I could see the case for him to be better than a fourth-round pick.
Yeah.
It really was an incredible receiver draft. But I would agree. I think Molden at 100, a guy I saw some Molden mocks, right around the fringe of the first, second round.
Yep.
And I think what he ran at Pro Day hurt him probably. He apparently had a bad hammy that day, ran anyway, ran a 4.6. He's a really good football player. If you watch, this is one of those examples of the measurables are what they are, but he is go watch any of him at Washington, a heck of a football player. And I think that combination, if Farley's all good and you bring in Molden, now you've reset yourself at an obvious position of need at cornerback.
Now, Ryan Porth, you've been on record this morning in saying you have not been a huge fan of this draft by John Robinson of the Titans. Which draft pick outside of Caleb Farley excites you the most moving forward here? Do any of them excite you moving forward here?
Excites me? Probably not. I'm most intrigued by Weaver.
Okay.
I'm most intrigued by Rashad Weaver because the Titans need him to be productive because they need more than just two pass rushers. And as the roster currently sits, Rashad Weaver's number 3. And Bud Dupree, we don't know whether or not he's going to be at full strength by week 1, which means Weaver could end up getting a lot of snaps at that time. They need him to be productive. Wish the Titans, again, I'll sound like a broken record for the last 3 years, would put more value into a deep pass rush room, especially in the draft. I know Joe mentioned earlier that Harold Landry was a second-round pick. That's nice, but they have not drafted a true pass rusher in the first round since Javon Curse. And at some point, you got to do that again if you want that impact stud pass rusher and not, try to fork out a lot of money in free agency.
So Rashad Weaver, the most intriguing piece for Ryan Porth. Joe, you're, I think, a lot higher on Weaver than certainly Ryan Porth is. What sort of a pro do you think he's going to be at this level, based on how much you've watched him at Pittsburgh, kind of the different things that you can do with him, either at outside linebacker, he can play defensive end as well, maybe could be able to move inside. What do you make of Rashad Weaver? What sort of a player do you think the Titans have gotten with pick number 135 overall?
See, I like him just from watching him. I think he's a really good football player. But beyond that, let's go to the numbers. His 40 was a 4.86. That's not blowing anybody away. But how much does a 40 matter, for guys like that?
Right.
The 40 matters more for skill guys, right? What matters more for that position is the 10-yard split. The 10-yard split, 1.56. Do you know who was better than that 10-yard split among the edge players in this draft?
I'm going to guess no one.
No one. Now, how much does that matter? There are a lot, like 1.57s and 1.58s in there, but he's got good burst. The point being there. He stops the run. He will set the edge, and it's interesting that like at the Senior Bowl, they moved him inside. It's possible that he could do that here. I think he fits what they want to do. I just think he's a really tough, good football player. To go to Brugler, so Brugler says he may not be a dynamic athlete by NFL standards, but stout at the point of attack with efficient stack shed skills to be reliable versus both the pass and run, which gives him NFL starting potential in different schemes. Brugler had him as a third rounder. They got him in the 5th. I like it a lot. Look, I think Ojulari's ceiling is, if Ojulari's all good with his knee, like there's a guy who I think he's got all the measurables you want there. I think Jalen Phillips could be a star, but there just weren't that many guys that that were like checked all the boxes. And I feel like I think Weaver, and he said it, and a lot of guys say it who go later, that he thinks he's the steal of the draft. He thought he was going in the second round, but I think he actually could be a big, big steal out of this class. And I understand the comparison Porth made earlier to DeAndre Walker because it was a fifth-round pick, and it was like, oh, maybe he'll help. I mean, I've just watched a lot more of Weaver, but you're talking about 17 sacks in his last 17 sacks, but last year in 9 games, 7.5 sacks, 14.5 tackles for loss, coming off an ACL. I like him a lot.
We'll continue the discussion on the draft when we come back, taking your thoughts on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Evan, hang with us. We'll get to you on the other side of the break on the phone line as well. All that coming up. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ryan Porth here with you on this Monday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. Streaming live on Periscope, on YouTube, and on Twitch as well. We're vibing today.
By the way, I have to correct myself. Correction.
Okay.
I think I've been saying this whole have I been saying all day that Weaver's a 5th-round pick? Because he's a 4th-round pick.
Yeah.
Yeah, my bad. They didn't have a 5th-round pick.
It's okay. It was pretty late.
I apologize. Still a late 4th-round pick.
Yes.
By the way, did you realize, I did not realize this till the weekend, the Titans had made 1 4th-round pick in John Robinson's 5 years.
I did not realize that.
Amani Hooker. He was 1 for 1.
Worked out pretty well.
And so now, will he be 3 for 3 with Dez Fitzpatrick and Rashad Weaver as his 2nd and 3rd ever 4th-round picks?
Titans fans certainly hope so.
Doesn't the Elijah Molden pick kind of feel like Amani Hooker from a couple years ago, where good value, you could see it on draft day, and then here in a couple years, Molden might be a really good starter for this team?
Yeah, except are we sure it's a couple years from now?
Maybe now.
I think there's more need for him maybe I'm a little down on Kevin Johnson compared to some people.
Maybe
okay,
so.
but I feel like Elijah Molden could get on the field with significant work this year.
But if everyone's healthy, he's their fourth corner, right? Behind Jenkins, Farley, and Fulton.
And in theory, he could be their fifth to start. But, yeah, you'd like in camp to see him just slide right past Kevin Johnson. Yeah. And then, he'd be their fourth. That's what's interesting, though, is like, or do they like him so much as a slot corner that one of those other guys is off? I don't know. Corner is going to be –
Could Jenkins be the fourth? Like, if they like Molden that much in the slot, could you go Fulton and Farley on the outside?
And then, obviously, you have the question of, like, Farley may make it simple. But corner, something to watch.
Let's go to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in Evan from Nashville, who wants to weigh in. Evan, thanks for calling in to Robby and Rexrode.
Hey, appreciate it, guys. I'm going to go a direction that I think a lot of people aren't looking at. I'm going to talk about Racey McMath taken in the 6th round. Now, for this guy's measurables, there's obviously a reason he was still available in the 6th round. The guy who's that big and runs that fast should have been picked up way before. And the fact that at LSU with their receiver room, he didn't turn into more of a playmaker has probably had a lot to do with that. But even if Coach Rob Moore can't turn him into a big play player at the NFL level, I'm talking about a different aspect. And I know that forcing more fair catches isn't something that gets people hyped up, but every time you force a returner to make a fair catch, that's a big play that has no potential to happen. And I think that he has the opportunity at the gunner position to force more of those plays. And we know that coach coming from the Bill Belichick school of thought, Belichick puts a lot of enforcement upon special teams and putting good players out there. And so that's a guy that I'm hoping can make an impact on this team that not a lot of people are talking about.
Hey, thanks for the call, Evan. We appreciate it. I mean, I think all that's a great point, and Evan's right. I mean, he's 6'2", 211. He runs a 4.3 40, and you're thinking to yourself, goodness gracious. I mean, you've got size there. You've got speed to go with it. How has this guy made it to the 6th round? He was not as productive as you thought maybe he would be at LSU, but I think also in terms of a 6th-round pick, if you're looking at it, if you're the Titans, number one, what Evan brought up there at gunner on special teams can be a huge weapon for you in that area, but also – like if you can get something figured out at wide receiver and you can teach him how to run routes at the NFL level, you can teach him how to get open, to catch the ball reliably. I mean, 6'2", 211, 4.3 40. I think you take your chances with that in the 6th round.
Yeah, and Evan, you must also subscribe to my belief. The most important play in football is the punt, Evan.
That's right.
And seriously, I mean, it is funny to see someone actually say star gunner, but that's what Brugler said, and he could be a star gunner. Here and there, teams will have a special teams guy who gets some Dave Meggett love out there. But I agree. How many other teams might he have had a little bit more of an opportunity to play earlier, than LSU? I mean, it's a tough room, man. That's a tough room to carve out snaps in. So he is an intriguing player. That could be a value pick too.
So if you're the Titans and a Titans fan sitting here looking at this draft, what is your biggest regret from the draft that the Titans did not do? Is it not drafting a tight end? Is it passing up on Elijah Moore, Azeez Ojulari? Like, as you're looking at this, if you're the Titans, what do you think is the biggest regret? I'll tell you one thing that I think has the opportunity to be a regret for the Titans, and that is trading with Green Bay and letting Green Bay take Amari Rodgers. I think he's really good. Like, I think Amari Rodgers is a really good player, and he could have been there for you if you're the Titans. That's a route you could have gone had you stayed put at 85. That's one that comes to mind to me. Like, I feel a little bit differently about Elijah Moore and Azeez Ojulari based on how far they fell in the draft. Like, I think Elijah Moore is going to be really good, and he ends up with the Jets. And there was a really cool video over the weekend that A.J. Brown posted being with him when he was drafted, and he's, like, crying about how happy he is for Elijah Moore, saying he's going to be the best and all this other stuff. Just really cool stuff from A.J. Brown. So I think Elijah Moore is going to be really good. I do feel a little bit differently about not drafting Elijah Moore at 22 based on how far he fell in the draft.
After watching that video, I'm like, man, Titans,
maybe they should
have brought him in here. Yeah. I mean, A.J. Brown was basically saying, like, he's his idol. Like, he taught him stuff as a freshman when A.J. Brown was a junior. Yeah, and, that and the fact, like you said, no Rodgers. I mean, the whole thing kind of tells me that the Titans weren't worried about getting another a slot. They weren't worried about – they paid Adam Humphries 36 over 4, and, of course, cut him halfway through to be the slot receiver. So they must – and John Robinson was asked about that, and he basically – and I think Vrabel and Robinson both said, other different people can play in there. Obviously Cam Batson fits the physical profile of a lot of slot guys in this league, and he's still around. But that will be, that's a guy to watch. And, of course – Azeez Ojulari is a guy to watch, and Greg Newsome is a guy to watch in Cleveland for sure, because you go risk-free, or at least less risk, if you take Newsome there over Farley. You went for the higher risk, potentially the higher reward with Farley, but if Newsome turns out to be a dynamite starting cornerback with the Browns and you have issues, then obviously that's another obvious comparison that's going to be made down the road.
It is. I look at this draft and, like, where they went in the first round. The one that stands out to me is, like, if you're a Titans fan and you're worried about Caleb Farley, the guy that I'm always going to be looking at is Newsome in Cleveland. Like, how does he play? What does he look like? Everybody just talks about him as if he's going to be a solid player at the NFL level, and, like, the floor is he's a good starter in the NFL. I'm interested to see if that's the case. Like, can he be a Pro Bowler? Is he just going to be a solid corner for 8 to 9 years? How long is he going to last in the lead compared to Caleb Farley? Like, I think that's an interesting comparison to watch. And we always do this with drafts. Like, we talk about, the Titans selecting Jake Locker over J.J. Watt. I mean, it's easy to go back and have your 2020 hindsight vision in this stuff, but I think the Caleb Farley / Greg Newsome comparison will be there for a long time.
Yep, and we're still waiting for the Titans to pick up the fifth-year option on a first-round pick under John Robinson. Adam Schefter reporting today, that no Evans. So will Farley be that guy? Now, I do think that Jeffrey Simmons
probably
is trending toward potentially being the first, but you need some of those. You need some of those guys that you take that high to be long-term players for your team, like Taylor Lewan is, who was picked by the last GM. I mean, you can't constantly rotate through 4 years with your first-round picks and not suffer for it.
Well, and think of their second and third picks in this draft. You're making up for mistakes you made in the first round.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, you're making a second-round pick for a tackle because you whiffed on Isaiah Wilson. You're drafting an inside linebacker in Monty Rice because you assume Rashaan Evans isn't coming back, who was a first-round pick. I mean,
Drew Rosenhaus said they want to sign him to a long-term deal.
That's true.
Okay.
Everything that comes from his mouth, you've got to believe. That's for sure.
But you're right. I mean, those are both do-overs. And, again, like the Monty Rice pick is a do-over and kind of taking the same guy.
It is. I'll give you another one that I think could be a regret, not just for the Titans, but for a lot of teams. And I know I've watched this guy play a lot of college football, so maybe there's a little bias there. But, I mean, you take Brady Breeze at 215, Trey Smith goes at 226, offensive lineman out of Tennessee. Like, I don't think it's that crazy when you just watch the physical tools that Trey Smith brings to the table to say that he can be in this league for, like, 8 years, 10 years, something like that. Like, I get it. There's a health concern, and the blood clots, I think, probably scared a lot of teams off. I was shocked that he dropped to 226 overall. I was
too, and then I was like, those Kansas City Chiefs.
I know.
Those crafty Chiefs. Because I think he's going to be a starter for them for a long time, eventually. And I don't know. They've been that family, and I did a big story on Trey a few months ago, and they're like, look, it's not an issue. It's all been figured out and taken care of, but obviously teams don't think so, or they're worried about it. That's a really interesting situation. There's more to it than we know, but I was shocked too. I thought Trey Smith was going in the third round.
Like, I think we were wondering, like, who was going to be drafted first. Was it going to be Trey Smith or Josh Palmer? I said, Josh Palmer, it doesn't really surprise me he was drafted ahead of Trey Smith. I didn't think it'd be by that much, though. My goodness.
No, not at all.
I think that could be a move that 31 other NFL teams around the league probably regret at some point letting him get to Kansas City. When we come back, we'll continue the discussion on the draft, taking your thoughts on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 1025. Also get into the Rashaan Evans news that Joe just talked about. What does that mean for linebacker for the Titans moving forward? All that coming up. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 1025, The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 1025 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ryan Porth here with you on this Monday morning in Nashville, Tennessee, taking your thoughts on the Titans and the NFL draft on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Got a texter, Joe, that says, favorite Titans pick, the one that finally gets John Robinson fired when training camp opens with Farley on the non-football injury list.
Jeez.
Right, wow.
Boy, a little bit of J-Rob hate there, and apparently knowing more than we do on the medical situation.
Do you think that if Caleb Farley's on the injury list when training camp comes around, they're going to fire J-Rob?
Oh, yeah.
I'm just checking.
I'm sure Amy Adams-Strunk has already told him, hey, good pick, John, but you know you're fired if he's hurt to start camp, right? Okay.
Let's go back to the text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Ben texted in, as of now, do y'all think the team has improved enough this offseason so that Tannehill can keep not carrying us when Henry gets stuffed in the playoffs?
Ooh, wow. The snark. The snark is heavy today. A lot
of snark on the text line today. Jeez.
Meanwhile, Gregory Anderson with the Debbie Downer Jared face is pretty amazing. Yeah. Speaking of a Debbie Downer, Andrew from Dover, as an Alabama fan, how is it possible Dylan Moses goes undrafted? I know. How is it possible that every single Alabama player didn't get drafted? That is such a disappointment. Now, Dylan Moses, I mean, he had a lot of injuries, right? I mean,
Yeah.
he's had a ton of injuries. Kind of ill-fitting in the league, too.
He's a good player.
Yeah, he's a good player. They're all good players at Alabama.
Now, has he been picked up yet? Yeah, he got picked up by the Jags.
Ooh.
So,
Urban strikes again.
Dylan Moses going to the AFC South.
Imagine those practice clashes between Dylan Moses and Tim Tebow.
Oh.
My goodness.
Do you think
iron sharpens iron in Jacksonville?
Do you think Tebow's going to end up on the Jags roster?
I hope so. I've always listen. I said from the time he won the Heisman, that dude's a tight end in the NFL. Dude's not a quarterback. Tight end, H-back, great H-back. He finally comes around and figures it out.
He's 33.
That's still like right on the.
I get it.
That's right on the fringe of your athletic prime.
He doesn't have wear and tear. That's for sure. At least a lot.
That's right. No, he's fine. He's good shape. Should be fine.
I feel like we should have seen this coming with Urban Meyer coming in there, and then all of a sudden Tim Tebow's trying out for tight end with the Jags. I feel like we should have seen this coming.
Maybe he'll get Alex Smith back out of retirement real fast.
Maybe so.
Quarterback at Utah. So on the still in good shape, bringing back tight end front. Some people have talked about Delaney Walker.
Yep.
I'll just put my 2 cents in again. No.
I'll float this out there. If you want to bring Delaney Walker back on like a tryout at training camp just to see what he's got, sure. Why not?
You think he's up for that? You think he's cool with that? No way.
Well, if he's not cool with it, then just retire because I don't know what other team's going to give you a chance it's not that. Like, if you're an NFL team, why would you have any interest in Delaney Walker whatsoever? He hadn't played football in like 4 years via injury or via, opting out last year.
Yeah, well, he came back in 19, and you could see he was diminished. So, he played, but he wasn't the same Delaney Walker. He hasn't looked like Delaney Walker since 2017.
Yeah.
Not his fault that he, had that gruesome injury in the first game of 2018, but he hasn't been the same. He's about to be 37. It's time to go ahead and move on.
Let's go back to the text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Got a text that says, these J-Rob haters are idiots. That guy has drug us from the dregs of the league to the playoffs every year. We got lucky with J-Rob. I do not trust the Titans to hit on another good general manager. I think it's been largely good.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's overall, the direction has been very positive. His tenure, I'll cite the stat again, 3 teams in his tenure have more wins and more playoff wins, have a better record and more playoff wins. And those are like the Chiefs, Packers, and I forget the third. But it's been very good. The drafts after the last one, don't look as good. Yeah. Now, the draft 2 years ago was outstanding.
Let's go to our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Chris texted in, is Stillman texting in about getting J-Rob fired? Please play the clip of Mark Howard laughing at the Farley pick ASAP.
Yes. Let's hear it again. That is
Caleb
awesome.
Farley, defensive back, Virginia Tech.
Todd McShane's
play it. Keep playing more. I got
Virginia Tech.
Todd McShane's
Caleb Farley.
Let me tell you something.
Okay, all right. We'll open it up. But can I have the first reaction on this one? If this is a mistake, John Robinson's getting fired.
Fired.
There you go.
You're fired.
He's getting fired.
You're fired. God, so awesome. I mean, is that does Jared stand by that today?
Probably.
Like, at what point do we so if he's hurt, like we just had the texture, if he's not NFI and he's we know he's not fired at the beginning of camp, right? Like, at what point? So, 5 years from now? Like, when does he get
when's
fired?
When's the cutoff date?
Yeah, when does he get fired because of Caleb Farley? I love it. It's so amazing. And the Mark Howard laugh
it's incredible.
So good.
Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech.
Just looking at Jared like,
laughing.
This is so good.
Got Jared and Chris Sanders over there physically in pain with the Caleb Farley pick.
You should have heard the reaction after the Monty Rice pick. I mean, Mark Howard was basically talking Jared off the ledge at that point.
I'd like to hear that. Maybe tomorrow we can
get
spend some time with that one.
Let's go back to the text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Frederick texting in from Stockbridge, Georgia, says, Racing McMath is similar to Russell Gage of the Falcons. Start on special teams and grow into a wide receiver 3 or 4. I mean, you love the physical tools.
I mean, look.
I don't know if he's going to make the team this year, but you love the physical tools.
Yeah. Well, if he's that good, as a gunner, if he's that good on the kicking game, he'll make the team. And look what they did with Cleve Raymond. You kind of bring him in, and it's like, okay, somebody who can stretch the field here and there.
Yep.
You know, seems like McMath could be a guy like that.
Will from Nashville on the text line asks, went to Vanderbilt and am a fan. Does Joe think Jared Pinkney has much of a chance at making the Titans' final roster? I mean, based on the tight end room right now, maybe.
Yeah, I think he does have a chance. He's actually the first guy John Robinson mentioned when I asked about the tight ends the other day and just the whole room, beyond the obvious, after Swaim and Ferkser, the two guys we know will make the team. Other than that, I don't think we know anyone, but I think Pinkney's got a chance. He's got to be a great blocker. I mean, he's got to be great as an inline blocking tight end, and if he is, I think he's got a chance to make the team. And look, we saw at Vanderbilt, the guy can catch the ball. He can be a receiving threat.
Joe, very quickly, on a scale of 1 to 10, how shocked are you the Titans did not pick up the fifth-year option for Rashaan Evans? Is 0 an option?
Is negative? I mean, I had the scale earlier, the -1, -3. Yeah, I'm at a 0 if that's the lowest I can go. I mean, actually, hey, Glennon, Glennon, it's an obvious question to ask.
Yeah.
Okay, you only get like 1 or 2 on those Zooms. Thank you, Glennon, for sacrificing your question to ask the question of the Rashaan Evans, and then of course the answer is we're working through that.
Yeah,
we're working
sure
through that.
you are.
When you guys are not around asking us questions, you will find out that he's not getting the fifth-year option picked up. But apparently they want to sign him to a long-term deal.
See how that goes. I find that difficult to believe. We'll see what Rashaan Evans looks like in 2021. That does it for us today here on Robby and Rexrode. We'll be back 6 a.m. tomorrow. Darren Donica Chase coming up next. This is ESPN 102.5 The Game.
Caleb Farley, defensive back, Virginia Tech.
Todd McShay.